Got it. All right, well, welcome. I believe now are live on YouTube. I'm Paul Sugarman of the Instant Shakespeare Company, and this afternoon we're presenting the Shaw Project presentation of Vote, which has a couple of one-act plays and a scene from The Apple Cart by Shaw. We're going to have, I guess it's Vote by Ballot by Harley Granville Barker first, and then press cuttings by Shaw, and then a scene from The Apple Cart. And the leader of the Shaw Project is David Cedar. So over to you, David.
Hello, everybody. I decided, because of the nature of this month, that we should do a political program. So that's what we're doing. It consists of two plays and a scene. The first play is by Shaw's longtime friend and collaborator, Harley Granville Barker, and it is titled Vote by Ballot. Then we will do press cuttings by Shaw and a scene from Shaw's later play, The Apple Cart. We start with Vote by Ballot. Let's introduce the cast. I am playing Mr. Torpenhouse. Jane, introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, I am playing Mrs. Torpenhouse.
Yeah, and this is Jane Hamilton.
I'm sorry, Jane Hamilton.
And Drew?
I'm Drew Bolander, and I'll be playing Noel Whichway.
And Angus?
Angus Eprin from London, playing Lord Silverwell.
Okay, I'm going to turn off my video for the moment, but I will be reading a bit of opening description. It is one of those days of spring in England when the English spring is behaving itself. The sun shines white through the open French window into Mrs. Torpenhouse's drawing room. It is a pretty room, empty at the moment. For 10 minutes ago, Mrs. Torpenhouse, with a garden hat on, her hands looking enormous in rough gloves, a basket slung to her arm, went out through the open window. It is Mrs. Torpenhouse's own particular room, and she lives her life in it. But it is called the drawing room, just as Mr. Torpenhouse's particular room is called the study. This is an upper middle class English house, standing in the suburbs of a country town run on, say, £500 a year. On this spring morning, while she, with garden hat and gloves and basket, is outdoors, the butler shows into this drawing room Lord Silverwell, a man, one would say, who has been thrust willy-nilly into importance. He is a wealthy manufacturer, a self-made man, a petty prince of commerce. Yes, Mrs. Torpenhouse is at home, sir. My lord.
Then I'll wait for Mr. Torpenhouse and tell Mrs. Torpenhouse that is here.
Yes, my lord.
I saw you ride up. Someone took your horse? I was down in the meadow looking for mushrooms.
That's a new butler.
Yes. Yes.
He knew there was a title now, but he didn't know what title, and well, I was too shy to tell him.
Lewis is in the town hall.
So is Noel. I said I'd wait for them both here, if I may.
Lord Silverwell sounds much nicer, but Lewis says the town was disappointed.
I thought that well over, and as soon as I could speak of my impending elevation, I took advice. Cuttleton. Do you think that ought to have been the title? I owe the place much. It sounds as democratic as a peerage can.
But it's how much the town owes you, Lewis says, that they're thinking of. I suppose they'd like to stand sort of godfather of you in return.
Which way of Cuttle? I should have liked, but to ennoble your own name, one has to have done something. My own estate, well, Noel was born there, even though I bought it. That's modest and yet dignified, I hope.
Lewis likes it. And have you been to the House of Lords yet?
Oh, not for worlds. It'll have to be done, though.
Well, I don't think wear anything special there, do they? Coronets and things?
Only on certain occasions.
Have you got yours yet?
Yeah, I've ordered one. It's usual.
What's it made of?
Silver gilt.
Oh, now mind you keep it clean.
Once a week with the forks and the spoons.
I'm serious.
When did Torpenhouse go to the town hall?
Lewis has been going and coming all day. He's very anxious.
We're all anxious.
He ate no lunch.
Noel ate no lunch. Well, I ate a fair lunch, but I'm very anxious, and whichever way it goes now, most annoyed.
I can't take any real interest in politics, so I just don't pretend.
At the very best, the majority will have been cut down, cut to nothing, cut to ribbons.
But why should you be nervous of the House of Lords when you've been a real member of Parliament all these years?
My position over this election is a very awkward one. Did you read the papers this morning?
Lewis read both the papers at breakfast.
Of course, they're sick about it, in spite of that one ballot box and our peculiar hopes on a recount. It's been a safe seat ever since 1886, the second time I held it for them. I promised them it was a safe seat when they offered me the barony. And now if my own son's to lose it, well, what could be more awkward?
Yes, I'm afraid I don't understand. One might ought to pick them first thing in the morning, but I can't get up early as I once could.
Oh, we grow the mushrooms in a cellar.
Oh, there's Lewis putting his stick in the sand.
How do you do, Mrs. Torpenhouse?
Well, no.
One.
Against you?
Yes.
I'm damned. Oh, Mrs. Torpenhouse will excuse me.
Oh, it's not your fault, Father, and I'm damned.
Lewis, can we petition? One can always prove bribery if one wants to.
No, let it be.
But it leaves me in such an impossibly awkward position.
Will you have some tea?
Yes, Mary.
Oh, thank you.
By one vote, mind you. 225 in the extra box. We were 15 to the good last night, not 14. I wish the fool had never found it. One vote.
I wish I knew whose vote.
And have you really not got to in it for good and all?
I'll tell, what's his name? What's the name of the new butler?
Kevin.
To bring tea, I must wash. Oh, that committee room table. Oh.
Lewis is very upset.
Braxted let us down. Have you seen his letter?
Oh, no, confound his letter.
Well, Lewis has it. That shows you the personal attention one ought to pay to a small constituency. I did 30 years ago. I spent a solid 3 years tackling every man in the place, and then I got careless. But that shouldn't have made you careless. No, it's not your fault. I dare say Lewis remembers he should have put you in the way of it.
Oh, dash it. I've had 3 weeks, not much more.
One vote? I suspect Braxted. If Braxted had voted straight and you'd been elected by the mayor, that would have been bad enough. A casting vote.
Well, Braxton came down for the recount, and he told me, not that he need have told me, that out of personal regard for you, no kindness to me at all, he deliberately spoiled his voting paper, so
Oh,
there.
I don't believe him at all. He went against you. You read his letter?
Lewis thinks Mr. Braxton is far too violent a man, anything he says. To mean anything he says.
I never liked your address.
You didn't expect me to copy your address?
Well, my address got me in last January.
You got in last January because you always got in.
No, I'm not blaming you.
Here's tea. We shall all feel better then.
Oh, your meetings were excellent, Lewis assures me.
And you never went to one of them?
Well, a peer of the realm, you see, may take no part in an election.
Not even to help his own son? That isn't natural, is it?
Lord Mounttorby may have been too radical for them.
Nobody else was radical enough.
Well, he speaks well. Got that letter of Braxton's, Lewis?
I tore it up. I didn't know you wanted it.
Oh, there may have been a dozen other men who did as he said he'd do.
Spoiled his paper on purpose, he told us.
When he knew we'd lost.
If he says so, I dare say he did. With all his faults, he's a feeling fellow.
Oh, yes.
If a dozen voted Tory because you weren't radical enough for them, silly fools! And hadn't the honesty to tell you, so as Braxton told you, still, 100 men calling themselves Tories must have gone for you because because you were...
Your son.
Well, not a smooth-headed carpetbagger of a Conservative penny-a-lining barrister, whatever else you are. Oh, I'm sorry to seem upset, dear Mrs. Torpenhouse.
Give Lord Stilwell his tea, Lewis.
But in my position with the party whips is, I do assure you, a most impossibly awkward one.
It's no use, Father. Yes, sugar, please. We thought you knew the town and every man's politics in it. Well, we didn't. I shan't stand again.
Well, don't say that.
Louis, I hope all the men at the works voted straight. Oh, I don't mean those whose opinions we know. There are Tories and Socialists, and I've never attempted to penalise a man for his political opinions, but all those that aren't anything in particular. If I didn't think they'd voted like one man for you, Noel, I should be very deeply hurt.
You'd have won the seat yourself, Torpenhouse.
No.
Well, you've been a first-rate chairman of the committee, and I'm sorry I've let you all down.
If Noel won't stand again, I really think you'd better, Lewis.
I won't.
I couldn't.
Oh, Lewis.
Why not?
I couldn't afford it.
Now, I know what you can afford and what you can't.
You stand.
There are reasons why I couldn't.
Lewis, I think it would be nice for you to stand. If only one felt sure you wouldn't be elected.
My dear Mary, don't talk nonsense.
That may sound silly, but it isn't.
Lewis, our factory has made Cuttleton what it is, and my estate is the biggest in the county. Well, no credit to me, of course, but that's so. If I can't any longer sit for the place, and Noel really means now to go and work up the South American branch...
For a couple of years.
Well, who else would have the seat but you? You're my man of business. You're more than that by a long way. Confound it all. If it had been your money instead of mine in the beginning, you'd be Lord something or other by now. And I should be, well, and I strongly suspect Cuttleton knows it too.
Lewis, when you're asked like that, I'm sure you ought to, just to show people that it's true. Some of it. Of course, only some. But if it comes to being elected and spending all your time in that drafty, stuffy House of Commons, we came to see you, Sir Alfred. There, one does slip back. Well, his health wouldn't stand that. And then, of course, I should have to interfere.
I'm too old. I wish I weren't.
He must get get the seat back.
Don't be depressed about my losing it, Torpenhouse.
I wish I could begin my life over again. I'm very unhappy.
Oh, my dear Louis.
My dear Torpenhouse, for heaven's sake, it hasn't been your fault.
Oh, Louis, I knew the strain would be too much for you. He's had nothing to eat today.
It's not the strain. I'm all right. Let me alone.
Oh, elections. Well, they're very wearying things. We'll talk of something else. Give me some more tea, my dear lady.
He's not strong.
Which way?
Yes?
No, your father, Lord Silverwell. I want to call you by your old name.
So you shall.
I have been a pillar of liberalism in this town for 30 years, haven't I?
All honor to you.
Be sure your sin will find you out.
My dear, you're very excited.
Well, it has at last, but only by one vote.
Today, but until today, the day of triumph. Oh, it's very difficult. This is my hour.
My dear old chap, you're not well.
Oh, Louis, do sit down.
Mary, I shall confess all with pride. Oh, with such pride. Noel, you have some right to complain.
Oh, no, not at all. Take it easy. Better yourself. Let's see you tomorrow.
No, I mayn't have the courage. Noel, you're a good fellow. In a sense, it never mattered with your father, and even now he won't understand. Boys together.
Of course we were.
Oh, Louis.
Don't hold me. Don't cry, Mary. It was my vote.
What do you mean?
My dear Louis, what do you mean?
I needn't have done it. Couldn't I have spoiled my paper? The mayor would have voted you in. No.
Oh, but do you mean you voted the wrong way by mistake yesterday?
I don't think that's what you mean, is it?
As a Tory, I have never fully approved of the secrecy of the ballot.
Louis, if you're ill, let your wife send for the doctor. If you're not, let's understand what it is you're trying to say and stop talking nonsense.
Which way? We've been good friends. I've served you faithfully. I don't regret that. Noel, I am quite calm now, and I think it my duty as chairman of your committee to inform you that yesterday I deliberately voted against you.
You're not serious.
My vote was serious.
It was.
But why?
For conscience sake.
Oh, Louis, explain yourself.
It isn't easy.
Louis, don't you think you'd better go and lie down?
No, I don't think he had.
Lord Silverwell.
Don't call me that. I mean, don't say it in that tone. Hang it, man. You queered the election.
You probably have never known what a moral difficulty was.
Haven't I? Well, why haven't I, pray?
Well, you've been so successful. And look at the money you've made.
I have made it honestly.
You see, I said so.
But what have I done to land you in such a queer dilemma?
Personally, I am so sorry, Noel.
No, believe me, Torpenhouse, personally, I'm not very much annoyed, although I could easily pretend to be, and politically, I'm quite excited.
Thank you.
You disapproved of my special little brand of opinion? Well, so did my father. He thought my address horrid. It was lucky he lost his vote.
Don't joke about this, Noel.
But I think we'd better. Come on, somebody must explain. You felt your part for your party's sake that you couldn't withdraw from your chairmanship, so you paid me out privately. I quite understand.
Oh, but I'm punished.
Punished? Noel's punished? Let me tell you, Torpenhouse, that you have behaved dishonorably.
Louis, shall I go?
I have. but you don't know how or begin to.
Well, we'll hear the worst, please.
I am a politician,
So we find. No, I beg your pardon.
a serious politician. For 30 years, I have voted straight. That, at least, is comfort.
Do you mean to tell me that all these years you have been voting against me
Yes, of course.
and been chairman of my committee?
Well, as chairman of your committee and your man of business, I always got you in. What are you grumbling at?
This is unbelievable.
No, get it all clear, Torpenhouse. You'll feel better.
Yesterday, it was sheer force of habit, Noel, nothing else. I felt so sure you were safe, by 100 or 2 at least. I never stopped to think. And now, at last, when I'd given up all hope of this damned constituency ever doing the right thing, to beat you, to have my better nature triumph in spite of itself, and by my own single vote, Mary, God has been very merciful to me.
Oh, hush, Lewis, don't say things like that.
Oppenhouse, this is very serious. I've always known there was a kink in you. You had strange tastes in books and things like that, but I never thought it was a moral kink.
My dear father, this needs understanding. Don't lumber us up with injured feelings.
Noel, please stop treating me as if I were a fool. If ever you have to look back on 30 years of a friend's deception, I'm sorry, it's a harsh word, but I cannot take this lightly.
My friend, I've never taken it lightly, if that's any satisfaction to you. You see, you haven't a conscience.
I will not be talked to like this. No moral difficulty to lumber up with feelings. No conscience.
Yes, but I hadn't finished. A tormenting conscience like mine.
Well, can you wonder?
I have wondered all my life why spirit should possess us.
Dare I say, keep to the point? Dare I hint that perhaps you don't know either what you're talking about, with Noel looking at me? No.
Why could I give my body and mind to working up the boot trade for you, and never my soul at all?
I never asked for it. I've never given my soul to the boot trade.
You have.
I have not.
Whatever else has made it. My disinterested business ability. Is that the price of success the God of this world asks?
We will not argue that.
Dear Lewis, what did you want to give your soul up to?
Dear Mary, I've never discovered. That's why I'm a failure at 63. I made you a liberal.
You did not make me a liberal.
I did. It was wrong of me, but I did it deliberately. For it seemed the only thing you could be.
I was always a liberal. You helped me put me into Parliament. I've said so, and thank you, more than once.
You were a voter.
Well, I voted Liberal, so?
You voted anyway. Don't interrupt me when for once in my life I'm saying something serious about myself.
Oh, go on. I'm the culprit here, I suppose.
I was a Tory. That meant something to me. It was a faith, a creed.
Then you could have stuck to it.
I was very fond of you.
I should have appreciated your independence of spirit.
Would you? I wonder. You're such a healthy man, which way, and everything agrees with you. And you do like people to agree with you, too. Heaven has made you yourself as nearly all of a piece as possible. It takes perfect machinery to do that. With our boots, doesn't it? But I'm a cobbled bit of goods. I've always known it. That has made me an unhappy man all my life.
Oh, Lewis.
I reverence my life with you, my dear, and thanks to the beauty that's in you, it has grown into being a good habit instead of a bad one. But it's a habit, Mary, now.
Do you remember saying to me years ago when you had bronchitis, and before the nurse too, that there were things about you I must never want to understand?
Yes, before the nurse.
And I went away And I cried and cried.
Brute.
And then I thought, well, it's only like having a husband and a visitor in one. And I haven't minded a bit, though I've never dared to say so till now. When we're all old people, except Noel.
Noel won't tell.
I don't feel old, and sometimes I feel wicked. I'm tempted to go kissing pretty girls, and if it wasn't that they dislike it, I'm not much to look at. I'm not sure I hadn't better kiss one and have done with it.
You may try, if you'll tell me whether she lets you.
Well, and what are you thinking of, old Witchway?
You are a Tory at heart, a true Tory, by Jove.
Why, we're all wrapped in hypocrisies, fold on fold. So shall I set up now as a libertine country squire? I resign my place with you, of course, Witchway.
What?
Don't you want me to?
Must you? No, I suppose you must. Oh, dear me, this is very vexing.
No, no.
30 years heartless deception.
Well, I must be allowed to feel it.
That isn't the reason. I want to resign.
You want to? No, really, I think that is too bad. Just when I've taken the peerage and Noel's going away, look here. What you have done is unforgivable. But after all, politics is only politics. And now, by Jove, instead of asking me to forgive you, you make matters worse by resigning. We can't do without you, and you know it. Oh, put your foot down, Mrs. Torpenhouse. Whatever else has happened, why cap it by trying to break up the whole system of things like that?
Lois must stop working sometime.
Well, I think at least it was for me to object to your remaining.
But I know you won't, you see.
No, I am prepared to face a great deal for your sake. I am stupid enough to be very fond of you, Lewis.
Bless you.
I thought we had been something more than master and agent. I thought we'd been friends. Now, if I have been mistaken...
You've not been mistaken.
What is it you're prepared to face, Father?
Well, I have been thinking as well as one could in these trying circumstances. Must the whole town know of this?
Certainly not.
Then ought we to tell each member of the committee in confidence?
That comes to the same thing, doesn't it?
I don't mind hanging on as chairman for a bit, say till the next election is in sight.
Oh, no, that seems to me a little immoral.
What's worrying you, Father?
Well, for conscience sake, ought there not be some sort of public announcement?
What on earth good will that do?
It will be very painful to me, very galling. I may be made to appear almost ridiculous, but it is of Lewis I have been thinking. When in doubt, make a clean breast of things. It seems to me that this is a public matter, so somebody should be told. It may not so much matter who, and not the whole truth, perhaps.
I shall tell nobody else.
Well, that might perhaps relieve my mind, Lewis. But are you sure that on general principles you are not wrong?
Look here. Is the ballot secret or is it not?
Well, that seems to me hardly a subject at the moment, either for joke or argument.
Which way? You're so trying when you're pompous.
I am not pompous.
I beg your pardon. I shouldn't have said it.
Oh, nonsense. You know you can say what you like to me. You always have. But you've no right to tell me I'm pompous.
Who wants to stand in a white sheet with his real and sham opinions hung around him?
Oh.
Confound it. Set me the example. Withdraw your poster that Witchway's boots are the best. Advertise what we really think of them.
Well, which way's boots are the best?
Then why don't you wear them?
Well, if we must go into details, because one of my feet is larger than the other, and it would be absurdly extravagant to have a special pattern manufactured. Which way's boots are the best that can be made in the circumstances for the price? and any sensible man reading the advertisement reads that into it.
I've been wearing them at all our meetings, on the platform, and sticking them out well out, but I don't like the shape.
My dear Noel, we have 24 different shapes.
I've worn them for 30 years, and whenever the spring weather comes, they hurt me. Not at other times.
I've tried my best to wear them, but you don't make a point of ladies' shoes, do you?
No, women, my dear Mrs. Torpenhouse, who purchase our class of goods seem to prefer to pay 7 and 6 or 10 and 6 for a thoroughly showy, shoddy article. We make a few to satisfy our retainers, but I always have given instructions for that line never to be, as we say, pressed. We are wandering hopelessly from the subject.
There's one supreme happiness I could get out of this situation. Torpenhouse, stand at the next election on the other side, your right side. By Jove, if you will, I'll come back and fight you and watch you beat me.
No, don't mock me.
I'm serious.
You're not 63. You've not wasted your life.
In my service?
Yes.
Torpenhouse should better stop. No, we'd better go. You're beginning to say things you'll be sorry for.
Not till tomorrow, when you'll have forgotten them.
Thank you. Of all the queer suggestions you have made this afternoon, that seems to me quite the queerest. I think I may say without exaggeration, I am doing my best not to be pompous, that this unhappy business will leave its mark upon me.
What sort of mark?
Had we not better let things rest for the moment? We're all very upset.
But I want you to understand a little, dear old friend, how the whole thing happened. All it ever meant to you in this sweating little town of yours, to have a seat in Parliament, and you sitting in it, was as far from the statesmanship I'd kneel and pray for us as the rag heap on which his poem will be printed is from the soul of the man who sings it. I've watched you in Parliament shout and chatter about this measure and that. Yes, and I've shouted and chattered outside Parliament too. It has been so easy, taking our tune from those worthy people who are given the country to govern and kindly give us something to chatter and shout for while they're so busy bodily doing it. From one decade to another, the same old tune, different words to it. It really didn't seem to me that it could hurt England at all to have you in Parliament. Honestly, I don't think it ever has.
Thank you.
If given you and 500 or 600 men like you talking, there couldn't hurt her. Well, only by God's mercy could she be saved anyhow. And I owed so much to you, which way in those old days, and I do now, that I felt I owed it to you first of all, just to be silent when they asked you to stand. I dug a pit for myself then. I think if we'd waited a few years, the other side might have asked you too.
I should have refused.
Why? We could have kept you unattached. Of course, I meant it first to keep out of the vile business altogether. But that was no use. You wouldn't even try to get on without me. I wondered if I could make you a Tory.
Huh.
That didn't do. You hadn't the stamina or the style. So I had to help you discover that you were a Liberal. Once I thought I'd declare right against you. Perhaps it would have braced you up and made you take things seriously.
Take things seriously?
What I call this seriously. But it was that ticklish home rule time. I'd have smashed you politically if I had. You were wobbling badly over it, you know, and it wouldn't bear wobbling over. So, of course, I couldn't. And my fraud grew and grew, and all my salvation when the day came was to fold up my little Tory vote so tight and drop it gently in. Well, Newman could find comfort telling beads at a miracle-working altar in Naples. It all seems now, as I look back on it,
Louis, I wonder at you. You still show a most twisted sense of things, I must say.
I have a twisted sense of things. I told you so. I am a crooked man whose life's a crooked mile. He earns a crooked sixpence and climbs a crooked stile. Into a straighter world for him, he always hopes.
Have you ever done a thing for me? Have I ever asked you to, which was not straight as a die? I wish to be told.
In one word,
Yes or no?
white or black, liberal, Tory, true or false. If God had only made you such a world and given it to you once for all, why then perhaps that honest best you've always done would be enough to keep it straight. But under our clothes and in your boots, we're queer, God's creation still.
Frankly, it all sounds to me mere rubbish. But if that's how you feel, why you couldn't abstain from voting, I can't think. I mean, that would have been bad enough.
I did one year. I simply couldn't stomach the other man that time.
Well, then if you ever let it be a personal question, the least you could have done was to vote for me. No, Louis, I take that very badly.
That year I was tempted to vote for you. You were turning so nicely that year, but I knew you'd still go the wrong way at Westminster, so I didn't.
Turning?
Tory.
What on earth do you mean?
Oh, you've been turned for some years now. It has quieted my conscience a little when I grew sure you would. And that's why they've made you appear, and for other reasons, so that it shouldn't be noticed.
Are you serious?
Of course.
I have never been so insulted in all my life.
Oh, my dear father.
Torpenhouse, you will apologize.
I'm afraid I can't.
Then we part.
I thought we'd better.
That seems a pity, though, doesn't it, if you're really in political agreement for the very first time?
I doubt if we should quite find that. Mine is hardly the official Tory mind. Why should it be? But he, of course.
Mrs. Torpenhouse, goodbye. As I prefer not to be discussed like this in my own presence, I will remove the temptation.
We must part as good friends as possible.
Whether, my dear fellow, it is worthwhile our doing anything but forget all the nonsense we've been talking, I will consider tomorrow. You're an unaccountable chap, you know. You always were, confound you. No, if you've your car here, I'll drive home.
I'll walk. I want to walk.
See you tomorrow, Louis. See you tomorrow.
I'll tuck him in warm. You ought to lie down. You're a bit shaken.
Just a bit.
We must have you in Parliament. Stand somewhere else next January. It'll relieve your mind. And if you did get in, they'd be the better for having you, heaven knows.
What, join that mob of vulgar demagogues who now prostitute the name of Tory to the nation? Thank you.
Oh, yes, after a meeting, after a glorious rally to our great principles, I used to feel something like that about my lot. But really, that's really why I'm not standing again. But then I'm nothing in particular. I'd be one of the mob, just as he was. You wouldn't.
I shouldn't have been, perhaps.
Goodbye, Mrs. Torpenhouse.
Jane, you're muted.
Thank you. My dear, I felt quite frightened for you. Are you better?
Better than I've been for years.
Oughtn't you to have done it?
Done what, Mary?
Voted wrong?
I did not vote wrong.
Well, right.
It was a matter for my own conscience. The ballot is secret.
I never thought it really was secret. I thought it was just pretense, like the other things.
I am prepared to advocate the abolition of the ballot. It compromises dignity and independence.
And that would have saved all this happening.
It is, in itself, demoralizing.
You know, I've got a vote.
Of course, for that property at Swindon's, only for the borough council.
Oh, not a real one. And I've never used it, for it seemed so silly. Is there a ballot there?
Yes,
Then the next time I shall go over, it'll be such fun. Do you remember years ago when we promised to have no secrets?
I remember.
You kept this from me.
There are others, Mary.
I don't mind. I dare say it's been good for you. I shan't tell you about my ballot, ever.
My dear.
And you really going to leave the Lord, Mr. Whichway?
If he'll let me.
He ought to. I wanted you to 10 years ago.
We've money enough.
Have we? Could we do anything with it?
Would you like to travel?
Yes, perhaps.
I meant to go to Spain, not for a week or two, for a year, to live there a bit.
Why Spain?
I thought of it when I had to learn Spanish for our South American business. What a waste otherwise.
I don't think I should like Spain, but you go. Why not?
What? After telling you I wanted to kiss pretty girls?
They wouldn't look at you. Yes, it was rather vulgar of you to say that. And before Noel, young men think you mean these things.
It's not such a journey to Spain. And if I didn't like it, I could come back. You could have Eleanor to stay with you. Which way won't let me leave?
You could make him.
I'm rather done up. I'll take a book to my room.
Yes. Sleep's what you need, I do think.
Curtain. Thanks, one and all. Let us take, well, let's make it about 7 minutes. No, let's make it 10 minutes. It's only 1:45. So we will reassemble.
Thanks, David. That was fun doing that. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Thanks so much, Angus.
That was. And it play over 100 years old, which still, I mean, feels very,
yeah.
very sort of contemporary. And
Yeah, absolutely.
He comes across as Granville Barker rather more cynical, if not quite so humorous as Shaw.
Hey, kids.
I
Yeah.
think
Hi, Ben.
hey, Ben.
I don't see myself. Am I at the right level of membership?
Yep.
Yeah, we can see you and hear you. You're probably just in some other thing and you've Zoom's clicked into the background somehow.
No.
But,
I see all of you. You're full screen, but I don't see me. How strange. You can see me.
Oh, yeah. Everybody,
see you?
I can see you.
Yeah, you're perfectly clear.
Yeah.
See if I can figure it out. Talk amongst yourselves.
Has my name
All
changed to Mrs. Banger, or was it always Mrs. Banger?
It's actually right now Mrs. Torpenhouse, but I will change it to Mrs. Banger because I did change it, because that's another thing that we can do is the renaming of them, because
Thank you.
I'd had it because when your invite said Mrs. Banger,
Right.
because I thought it was going to be in the other order originally, but no.
Well, I appreciate it, because when you said
Your
rename,
name is changed.
clouds just went in front of my eyes. This is not going to happen.
Yeah, well, but it's like it's simple, you just have to. I mean, you just get into another box and do that. And so, Ben, have you found us yet, or you
Yes.
still don't see yourself?
Yes. I just did. I had hide self view on for some reason.
Yeah, no, I do that.
Actually, a whole bunch of settings reset. I think there's ghosts in the machine.
No, it's probably
Update.
Zoom's probably updated itself, and it doesn't hold the old settings.
Oh,
I had to
rude.
refine the blurred background again. It always does that to me.
How rude of it.
It is. Well, it's Microsoft. They're not particularly friendly.
Well, Zoom is actually a Chinese company. I've got a friend who's like, I
They're
won't,
not
I won't talk
particularly
to you on
friendly
Zoom
either.
because the Chinese are listening. And I'm like, yeah, I got nothing to hide from the Chinese.
Oh,
It is strange that the updates sometimes sort of put things asunder in some ways, or then
Yeah.
and it's like demand. I'm doing it on my phone again that I've used. It is the only phone I ever used for it, and it's like I need verification. You need to go into this. It's like what? Why?
Oh God. Yeah.
Anyways,
Well, it keeps on asking me for a
isn't
password,
it amazing
and
how?
and I don't know it. You know, I rely on Google to find it for me.
Isn't it amazing how quickly we've all become so impatient when this thing doesn't work? When 20 years ago it was like this was miraculous. Life's gotten so easy.
Back in the days of the 8083 processors. That
God, if this had happened, if the pandemic had happened 20 years ago,
oh God, yeah,
I don't know if I would have been able to keep doing most of my work because everything went remote. You know.
that's right. Well, I occasionally watch these ambulance programs on the television over here.
You
and,
morbid soul.
and Casualty. Well, I like watching professionals be professional. And every so often it hits an episode where all the computers in the emergency department are down. So suddenly they're having to take out bits of paper and write whiteboards and keep track of everything. And they're tearing their hair, and you realize just how desperate it is if we lose connections.
Like and some of this is true to life, given the COVID situation, what they went through with that. I mean, it's,
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
it's not far from the truth.
And I remember when I was still in New York, ransomware didn't it hit a couple of hospitals in the tri-state area, and basically shut them down. They couldn't get hold of any records, or unable to book people in for tests. And you realize, God,
Yeah.
if it goes down, and of course when 9/11 and we lost all the communication in South Manhattan, it was
Yeah,
I remember that.
nothing worked.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, technology is wonderful when it works.
Yes.
That's actually on my New Year's list is to have sort of think through and plan out the emergency procedures for when that happens. When, he says, if that happens.
Yeah.
Things shut.
But I mean, but over here, the banking system's got very technical and very sophisticated,
Yeah.
so that I don't carry cash. I rarely take my bank card out. It's all done on my cell phone. I hold it up to the machine. I feel sorry for all the homeless people on the streets who are begging for money because
Yeah.
I don't have any. Somebody was telling me one of the big train stations in London, they said, I don't carry any cash. And the guy pulled out a card reader.
Homeless guy.
So even the homeless are getting someone.
Back.
See, if we put that in a sketch, we would all laugh and say, "Oh, but of course that doesn't happen. That's just a funny sitcom moment."
No, I know.
That really happened.
Well, I shall listen in to the rest of them. Thank you, guys.
Oh, good.
That's great. Great. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Angus.
is it? Should we get to work here? All right.
Yes, and I
Well,
will stay off until it's time for
Another
me.
5
to-
minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. Thank you, Jane.
Uh,
Yeah, we can still. I just have to do some.
Just in case.
Prime Minister.
So Anna, I'll meet you backstage, okay? And we can play.
Yay!
There is
Thank you.
also another thing that I've been using Zoom for so many years, and they've got this thing, breakout rooms, where you can put people into
Oh,
other
right,
like
yes.
rooms. But I don't know how to do that. I've never done that. I mean, I've been doing all of these Zoom things and live streaming them for several years now, but never worked that out yet. So someday.
Well, you know, it would be really embarrassing for us to be in a breakout room and be late to our own entrance on Zoom. So
So what would be really fun is if the audio settings got screwed up. So in the middle of the play, we suddenly hear the backstage breakout room.
that's the whole microphone on when you go to the bathroom kind of scenario. Yes.
I was in Man of La Mancha like 30 years ago, and we had body mics, and we didn't control them. They controlled them in the booth. And I walked off stage, and they didn't turn the mic off when I said, "Did you see that asshole in the third row?" Or something like that. It went out there.
Oh,
The
and
funniest
somebody
thing-
catch me when mine was still on going, you made all those little blue-haired ladies happy. And I was like, oh my gosh.
this is a rather naughty story. Jane, you remember when we did Oklahoma? I don't know if maybe you weren't doing Eller at that point, but we did
Yeah,
Oklahoma
I
at
know.
Garden State.
Yes.
Yeah,
The big place?
Yeah.
The big,
Yeah.
wow.
big outside place with it. It's covered over, but it's
Yeah.
now it's no longer being used for a theater apparently, which is very sad. But
Oh,
anyway,
that's a shame. It was
we're doing
great.
Oklahoma, and Louis DeLava was playing Will Parker.
Allie Hackham.
No,
He was
no,
like,
this was the point where Louis had changed to Will Parker.
oh,
He started
okay.
as Ellie Hackham, then he turned into Will Parker. And the gal playing Ado Annie, I think it was Harriet.
Oh, it was Harriet. That was before me. That was
She-
before me.
She had apparently this I don't know whatever happened. It was, she was fuller in a certain part of her body than she in the previous performance. So we're in the middle of the auction scene, and Louis in an undertone, forgetting we're wearing body mics now. This is after we graduated from the shotgun mics to body mics. Turns to her in the middle of the auction scene and says, "What happened to your tits?"
Oh,
Yeah.
It's broadcast out. I mean, I didn't hear it, but I was on the other side of the stage.
What happened to your what?
They froze in horror.
GITS.
Oh,
They absolutely froze in horror, but apparently the audience didn't catch it. So the response, fortunately.
oh, do we have time for one more quick story? It's a really good one.
Yeah.
Do we have time for one more quick story?
Yeah.
I was in The King and I a few years back, and there's a moment when the king picks up this little 7-year-old, well, she was a 7-year-old girl, and he holds her up and says something to Anna about her, teach the children, blah, blah, blah. And I picked up this little girl, and she has a body mic because she had lines, and I have a body mic. So I pick her up, she lets out a fart.
Oh, no.
Went out into the house. I think
Much the night I was there, though.
Kate Conagizer and Michael Lewis, I think, were there that night, so they can confirm this. Everybody heard it.
Hi.
Yes, the
Well,
technology
then I
that
told you I'm
can.
doing a show.
You're
I'm
also
doing-
not muted, Mrs. Banger.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad
Can we have 3 more minutes? Because somebody who I told I was in the middle of a Zoom show came and she has something she's bringing up to me. It will only take a second. She's coming up
Okay,
the stairs
sure.
and hand it to me. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Mute yourself.
I will mute myself. Oh, I'm going to be off.
Yes.
I
Well,
know.
that's it's and well, then that's the thing, and I mean, she was expressing like, oh, I'm not sure what to do with the Zoom because this is, I think, one of her first Zoom reading things. So, but I mean, she's doing great. Turn it on, start the mic, and then. But yeah, we all do the
It's
thing where
amazing
sometimes-
how second nature, how quickly it became second nature for all of us.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And we also, I mean, with our instant Shakespeare readings, there are a couple of them that we sort of decided because we had a scare that of people, I mean, transmitting COVID with the rates what they are, so that like this yesterday's All's Well, we moved to Zoom, and the week after we were always doing the Pericles that's next week on Zoom, but the week after when we were going to do Coriolanus at the 53rd Street, we're going to also do that on Zoom. So
Yesterday was one of those cases of, for this relief, much thanks, because trains are so screwed up coming in from Queens. I would have had to take 3 trains to get to that library.
yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. It's great to get together in person, but it's also great to get together. I mean, this way. So that
It
we can
really
still-
is, though. It really is. I was in finally an in-person one a few weeks ago with, what did we do? I forget.
Antony and Cleopatra.
Yeah. And
With-
it's just
with-
the vibe to be back in the room. And we had really good people. I mean, Tony Scheinman was putting on voices and clowning around is great. And to be doing it in the same space. Yeah, this is okay. But
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
It's nice to get together.
I remember the first in the first summer after COVID, I went to a friend put on a little Sherlock Holmes adaptation at one of the mansions in the Bronx. So it was outdoors, and you had to reserve your seats, and it was like me and the person I was with, and then 10 feet away is three people in the audience. And the actors were not wearing masks, but they were staged to always be 10 feet apart. And they were good, so you forgot about it. You didn't notice it. But everybody was laughing and so into the story and getting all the jokes, and it really wasn't that good. And at intermission, I was talking to other audience members, and it was the same. Everybody was having the same experience. No, the show wasn't that good. It was just so great to be out again in the same space, hearing the same jokes and lines at the same time, sharing it. Everybody thought this was the best piece of theater we've ever seen. Wait a minute, it's okay, but
All right.
it was that.
Yeah.
And we also forgot quickly how much we wanted it, needed it.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And I mean, I think that's very much also the thing with, in terms of that a lot of people, and that I also get from worship, from sort of going to church and being able to share the story together. It's like, it's not where we are connected to each other, which we are, and which it's just seems that while our economy is set up to put everybody against each other, that really the idea is that we have so much. There isn't us or them. It's only us.
Oh yes. And by the way, it isn't just our economy set up to do that. It's our psychology. And
I don't know how it. I don't know. Can you hear me? Yeah. I don't know how you guys are finding it over there, but over here, a lot of the companies are finding it difficult to get people to come back into the theater.
The theater?
Yeah, as audience. They're sort of reluctant. They seem to have found other things to do with their time.
Is anybody finding that here? I've been to Broadway a couple of times and the Met a bunch of times. It seems pretty well attended.
I think a lot of people are still nervous about crowds.
Yeah, the first one I saw was mid.
The seats are full when you're going to the theater.
They are here in New York?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
well,
Especially all the bargain tickets. TDF is doing quite well.
Yeah.
Should we get to it?
Are we back?
okay.
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I am
yes.
back.
Let us
I mean, I'm really enjoying this, but we're being recorded.
introduce ourselves for what roles we're playing in Press Cuttings.
Do we do it? Do we come in now or yet later for us?
I'm sorry.
Do you want us to be introduced at the beginning or when we come after we come in?
No, it should just say what role we're playing.
Okay.
I'll start. I am playing Prime Minister Ball Swith.
And I am King Magnus. I'm Bennett Pology.
No, wrong piece.
Oh, wait.
We're doing Press Cuttings.
Now you tell me? I'm sorry, but I need 2 minutes.
Oh. Oh dear. No, I said we were gonna. Oh well. No,
Well,
I
let's
changed the
introduce the
order.
rest of us.
No, I didn't change. I said we were gonna do. I guess there was just a misunderstanding. The Granville Barker, then Press Cuttings, then the scene from Apple Cart.
Oh, who listens when you talk?
By the way, it looks like we're going to have to do just the scene as I originally intended it because Drew didn't. Is Drew
Read
back?
his mind.
Drew didn't give some of you who don't have a full script did not give the whole scene the way I just decided I wanted to do it. It's okay. Except for the scene that tells the ambassador period. So
Are you talking? You're not talking about Press Cuttings. You're talking about.
I'm talking about the scene from the Apple Cart that we're going to do
Oh, okay.
at the end.
Okay.
As great as Press Cuttings is, the scene from Apple Cart definitely has to go at the end of this for very
No question. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't think
Very
there was
specific
anything that was missing from it, but you never know.
yeah.
Okay.
Because it's the just the nature of the scene.
Not a problem. So how's John?
John is good, and we have a new puppy. He's 9 months old. He's a Cairn Terrier.
Oh,
And he's brindle, so he's really got a beautiful coat, and he is loving this cold weather. And parents have double coats.
I was going to say at least one of you do it. One of you do it.
That's
Well, as long as I'm bundled, I like
that's
cold
the
weather.
Scottish in him, I think.
But he is definitely much more of a handful than Bodwell was, because first of all, he's a lot bigger. He's about 15 or 16 pounds at this point. So
How old is he?
9 months,
Oh,
and he chews like crazy. I cannot wait for him to
dear.
stop chewing. We
Oh,
we
dear.
very stupidly bought a new sofa.
oh no.
Classic.
Oh no.
Yes. And so now it's covered with a terrible, tatty, horrible old quilty thing to keep him from chewing the sofa. And I can't ever get to see my beautiful sofa except when we switch the pillows.
Oh boy.
Oh, but we take him to the dog run, and as soon as you take him off the leash, he's off.
Okay, I'm back.
He just,
Okay, you ready?
we're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, folks. This is Shaw's press cuttings, which was the dating of the publication of it is 1909. So it was beginning of, well, you'll very soon see what it's about. I am playing Prime Minister Balsquith. Paula,
I'm Paula Hosa, and I am Mrs. Farrell.
and Anna,
I'm Anna Cody, and I'm reading Lady Corinthia Benshaw.
Jane,
My name is Jane Hamilton, and I am playing Mrs. Banger.
and Drew,
I'm Drew Bollander, and I am reading The Orderly.
and last but certainly not least, Ben.
I'm Bennett Pology, and I'm General Mitchner, even though it says the wrong name in my thing, and I don't have time to fix it now.
Okay. Let me just give you a little.
It says the right thing, Ben, but your camera's off right now, just to let you know.
Yes. Oh, it says General Mitchner?
No, we see no picture.
Oh, well, it says the other character. Yes, I've got my camera off until we start.
Okay. Now, okay. This is the forenoon of the 1st of April in 1912. General Mitchner is at his writing table in the War Office, opening letters. On his left is the fireplace with the fire burning. On his right, against the opposite wall, is a standing desk with an office stool. The door is in the wall behind him, halfway between the table and the desk. The table is not quite in the middle of the room. It is nearer to the hearth rug than to the desk. There is a chair at each end of it for persons having business with the general. There is a telephone on the table. Votes for women. Votes for women.
Votes for women.
Oh, it's only you. No?
No one, sir. She's chained herself.
Chained herself? How? To what? I mean, we've taken away the railings and everything that a chain can be passed through.
We forgot the door scrapers, sir. She laid down on the flags and got the chain through before she started hollering. She's lying there now, and she says that you've got the key of the padlock in a letter in a buff envelope, and that you will see her when you open it.
She's mad. Have the scraper dug up, let her go home with it hanging around her neck.
There's a buff envelope there, sir.
You're afraid of all these women, aren't you? Well, it does seem to have a key in it. Dear Mitch. Well, I'm cashed.
Yes, sir.
What do you mean by yes, sir?
But you said you was dashed, sir, and you did look as if, you'll excuse me saying, sir, well, you looked it.
Well, This is a letter from the Prime Minister asking me to release the woman with this key if she padlocks herself, and to have her shown up and to see her at once.
Don't do it, Governor.
How often have I told you not to address me as Governor? Remember that you are a soldier, not a vulgar civilian. And remember also that when a man enters the army, he leaves fear behind him. Now, here is the key. And I've lost my place. If she, here's the key. Unlock her, show her up.
Me unlock her? Oh, I dursn't. Lord knows what she'd do to me.
Obey your orders instantly, sir, and don't presume to argue. Now, even if she kills you, it is your duty to die for your country. Right about face, march!
Votes for women, votes for women, votes for women.
Votes for women, votes for women, votes for women. Votes for children, votes for babies, votes for monkeys.
In you go. The person, sir.
Stop, madam, I protest. What are you doing? You must not undress in my presence, I protest. Not even your letter from the Prime Minister.
My dear Mitchener, I am the Prime Minister.
Good heavens. Balsquith.
Yes, it is indeed Balsquith. It has come to this, that the only way the Prime Minister of England can get from Downing Street to the War Office is by assuming this disguise, shrieking, "Votes for women," and chaining himself to your door scraper. They were at the corner in force. They cheered me. Bella Christina herself was there. She shook my hand and told me to say I was a vegetarian, as the diet was better in Holloway for vegetarians.
Why didn't you just telephone?
They tapped the telephone. The switchboard in London is in their hands, or in those of their young men.
Where on earth did you get that dress? I said, where on earth did you get that dress?
Great heavens. It's not French. We're not allowed even to put on our gloves with French chalk. Everything is labeled made in Camberwell.
Dave, I don't know where you've gone.
Oh, you must have a different version of the script. Oh dear.
I have the one you sent me, press cuttings, no?
Yes. It looks like there's a different version going on. I'm sorry.
Why don't we quickly resolve that? Let's, why don't you send me the script you want me to use? If it's handy.
I don't have it handy.
Well, I can send you this script.
Yeah, this is the script that everybody has been sent. Some people, like David, are using the their own. So it'd be best to get
Just have to
this.
adjust. Sorry.
Okay.
Do you want me to send you the script, Dave?
Do you have the line, what have you come for, Ben?
I can scroll through. I don't see it. No.
What do you have?
What you just said, I can't find, Dave. I'm way back up in.
What's the next line you have?
I said, "What on earth did you get that dress?" And you were off somewhere else. I don't know where you are.
He's after the French dress line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My wife isn't allowed to put her gloves on with the French chalk.
Yeah.
You don't have what have you come for somewhere?
No.
Damn it. Give me the exact line you have.
Where on earth did you get that dress?
That's the line I responded to. You don't have it. I hope it's not a French dress. And I said,
listen, let's not try to pick this apart. Let's find a script we can all use. If I
Okay.
send you this, can you use it on another screen or something?
Possibly, but
Okay, I'm going to email this to you.
I don't think it's gonna. I'm gonna have to go out. It's too much of a mess. I can't deal with it. Do you have the line? What have you come for?
No.
Do you have the line? Anything about sandstone? What do you have?
I just told you what I have. I have, what is it? Where on earth did you get this dress?
What's the next line you have?
You don't need to say it's a French dress. My next line is Old Red resigned. A completely different thing. Why don't you send me your script if you have it online, and I'll read off that one.
I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Do you have anything about Sandstone has resigned?
Yeah, in a few pages somewhere. Oh, I see that now.
No, it's right at the
Sandstone has
bottom of
resigned.
the page.
I see Sandstone has resigned. You want to start from there?
Let's take it from there and see what happens.
Okay.
Sandstone has resigned.
Old Red resigned?
Resigned.
But how? Why? Oh, impossible. The proclamation of martial law last Tuesday made Sandstone virtually dictator in the metropolis, and to resign now is flat desertion, isn't it?
Yes, my dear Mitchener. I know all that as well as you do. I argued with him until I was black in the face, and he's so red about the neck that if I had gone on, he would have burst. He's furious because we have abandoned his plan.
But you accepted it unconditionally.
Yes, before we knew what it was. It was unworkable, you know.
No, I don't know. Why is it unworkable?
I mean the part about drawing a cordon round Westminster at a distance of 2 miles and turning all women out of it.
Masterpiece of strategy. Let me explain. The suffragettes are a very small body, but they are numerous enough to be troublesome, even dangerous, when they are all concentrated in one place, say in Parliament Square. But by making a 2-mile radius and pushing them beyond it, you scatter their attack over a circular line 12 miles long. Superb piece of tactics. Just what Wellington would have done.
But the women won't go.
Nonsense, they must go.
They won't.
Well, what does Sandstone say?
He says shoot them down.
Ah, of course.
You're not serious.
I'm perfectly serious.
But you can't shoot them down. Women, you know.
Yes, you can. You know, strange as it may seem to you as a civilian, Balsquith, if you point a rifle at a woman and fire it, she will drop exactly as a man drops.
Suppose your own daughter, Helen or Georgina.
My daughters would not dream of disobeying the proclamation. Well, at least Helen wouldn't.
Georgina?
Georgina would if she knew she'd be shot if she didn't. That's how the thing would work, you see. Military methods are really the most merciful in the end. You keep sending these misguided women to Holloway and killing them slowly and inhumanely by ruining their health. It does no good. They go on worse than ever. Now, shoot a few, promptly, humanely, and there will be an end at once of all the resistance and all the suffering that resistance entails.
But public opinion would never stand it.
Oh, there's no such thing as public opinion.
No such thing as public opinion.
Absolutely no such thing as public opinion. There are certain persons who entertain certain opinions. Well, shoot them down. And when you have shot them down, there are no longer any persons entertaining those opinions alive. Consequently, there is no longer any more of the public opinion you are so much afraid of. Grasp that fact, my dear Balsquith, and you have grasped the secret of government. Public opinion is mind. Mind is inseparable from matter. Shoot down matter, you kill the mind.
Hang it all.
No, I won't hang it all. There's no use coming to me and talking about public opinion. You have put yourself into the hands of the army. You are committed to military methods. And the basis of all military methods is that when people won't do what they are told to do, shoot them down.
Oh, yes, that's all jolly fine for you and old Red. But you don't depend on votes for your places. What do you suppose would happen at the next election?
Have no next election. Bring in a bill at once, repealing all the Reform Acts and vesting the government in a properly trained magistrate responsible only to a council of war. It answers perfectly in India. If anyone objects, shoot them down.
But none of the members of my party would be on the council of war. Neither should I. Do you expect us to vote for making ourselves nobodies?
You have to, sooner or later, or the socialists will make nobodies out of a lot of you by collaring every penny you possess. Now, do you suppose this damned democracy can be allowed to go on now that the mob is beginning to take it seriously and using its power to lay its hands on property? Parliament must abolish itself. The Irish Parliament voted for its own extinction. The English Parliament will do the same if the same means are taken to persuade it.
That would cost a lot of money.
Well, not money necessarily. Bribe them with titles.
You think we dare?
Dare! What is life but daring, man? To dare, again to dare!
No. Women, votes for women. Votes for women, they're still yelling.
Script diverges. I have good heavens you haven't given orders to fire on them, have you? That's your line.
Oh, you're right. Covering the women. Good heavens, you haven't given orders to fire on them, have you?
No, but it's a sentinel's duty to fire on anyone who persists in attempting to pass without giving the word.
This military business is really awful.
Oh, be calm, Balsquith. These things must happen. They save bloodshed in the long run, believe me. I've seen plenty of it, and I know.
Yeah, I haven't, and I don't know. I wish these guns didn't make such a devil of a noise. We must adapt a maximum silencer for the army rifles if we're going to shoot women. I really couldn't stand hearing it. What's that?
What's that?
It's only me,
What's that?
Governor. It's all right.
What was it?
Suffragettes, sir.
Did the sentry shoot her?
No, sir, she shot the sentry.
Oh, is that all?
All? A civilian shoots down one of His Majesty's soldiers on duty, and the Prime Minister of England asks, is that all? Have you no regard for the sanctity of human life?
Well, getting shot is what a soldier is for. Besides, he doesn't vote.
Neither do the suffragettes.
Their husbands do.
Hmm.
Did she kill him?
No, sir. He got a stinger on his trousers, but it didn't penetrate. He lost his temper a bit and put down his gun and clouted her in the head. So she said he was no gentleman, and we let her go, thinking she'd had enough, sir.
Clouted her head. These women are making the army as lawless as themselves. Clouted her head indeed. A purely civil procedure.
Any orders, sir?
No. Yes. No. Yes! Send everyone who took part in this disgraceful scene into the guard room. No. I'll address the men on the subject after lunch. Parade them for that purpose. Full kit. And don't grin at me. Right about face. March!
And now, Commissioner, will you come to the rescue of the government and take command of that old Red has thrown up?
How can I? You know that the people are devoted heart and soul to Sandstone. He's only bringing you on the knee, as we say in the army. Could any other living man have persuaded the British nation to accept universal compulsory military service as he did last year? Why, even the church refused exemption. He is supreme, omnipotent.
He was a year ago. But ever since your book of reminiscences went into 2 more editions than his, and the rush for it led to the wrecking of the Times Book Club, you have become, to all intents and purposes, his senior. He lost ground by saying that the wrecking was got up by the booksellers. It showed jealousy, and the public felt it.
But I cracked him up in my book. You see, I could do no less after the handsome way he cracked me up in his. And I can't go back on it now. No, it's no use, Balsquith. He can dictate his terms to you.
Oh, not a bit of it. That affair of the curate.
Oh, damn the curate. I've heard of nothing but that wretched mutineer for a fortnight past. He is not a curate. Whilst he is serving in the army, he is a private soldier, and nothing else. I really haven't time to discuss him further. I'm busy. Good morning.
I'm sorry you take that tone, Commissioner. Since you do take it, let me tell you that, frankly, I think Lieutenant Chubbs Jenkinson showed a great want of consideration for the government in giving an unreasonable and unpopular order and bringing compulsory military service into disrepute.
Rot.
When the leader of the Labour Party appealed to me and to the House last year not to throw away all the liberties of Englishmen by accepting compulsory military service without full civil rights for the soldier,
Rot!
I said that no British officer would be capable of abusing the authority with which it was absolutely necessary to invest him.
Quite right.
That carried the House. And the feeling was that the Labour Party were soulless cads.
Well, naturally, so they are.
And now comes this unmannerly young whelp, Chubbs Jenkinson, the only son of what they call a soda king, and orders a curate to lick his boots. And when the curate punches his head, you first sentence him to be shot, and then make a great show of clemency by commuting it to a flogging. What did you expect the curate to do?
His duty was perfectly simple. He should have obeyed the order and then laid his complaint against the officer in proper form. He would have received the fullest satisfaction.
What satisfaction?
Chubbs Jacobs would have been reprimanded. In fact, he was reprimanded. Besides, the man was thoroughly insubordinate. You can't deny that the very first thing he did when they took him down after flogging him was to walk up to Chubbs Jenkinson and break his jaw. And that showed there was no use flogging him. So now he will get 2 years hard labor and serve him right.
I bet you a guinea he won't get even a week. I bet you another that Chubbs Jenkinson apologizes abjectly. You evidently haven't heard the news.
What news?
It turns out that the curate is well connected. He has 3 aunts in the peerage. Lady Richmond's one of them.
Oh,
Yes, and they all adore him.
oh.
Invitations for the 6 garden parties and 14 dances have been cancelled for all the subalterns in Chubbs's regiment.
I have not heard a word of it.
Hello, your country needs you, Mitchener.
I don't know where you are.
Oh dear. For my country, but what an infernal.
I have what an infernal fool.
Yes.
What an infernal fool young Chubbs Jenkinson is. Not to know the standing of his man, but why didn't he know? It was his business to know. He ought to be flogged.
Probably he will be by the other subalterns.
Well, I hope so. Anyway, out he goes, out of the army. He or I.
Steady, steady. His father has subscribed $1 million to the party funds. We owe him a peerage.
I don't care.
I do. How do you think the parties are kept up? Not by the subscriptions of the local associations, I hope. They don't pay for the gas at the meetings.
Man, can you not be serious? Here we are, face to face with Lady Richmond's grave displeasure, and you talk to me about gas and subscriptions. Her own nephew!
It's unfortunate. He was at Oxford with Bobby Bessborough.
Oh, worse and worse. What shall we do?
It's
You know, you don't know what this means to me, Balsquith. I love the army. I love my country.
it certainly is rather awkward.
What is it? How dare you interrupt us like this?
Didn't you hear the explosion, sir?
Explosion? What explosion? No, I heard no explosion. I have something more serious to attend to than explosions. Great heavens, Lady Richmond's nephews has been treated like any common labourer, while England is reeling under the shock of private. This private comes in and asks me if I heard about explosions.
By the way, what was the explosion?
Only a sort of bombshell, sir.
Bombshell?
Yeah, a pasteboard one, sir, full of papers with votes for women in red letters, fired into the yard from the roof of the Alliance office.
No poo. Go away, go away.
Commissioner, you can save the country yet. Put on your full dress uniform and your medals and orders and so forth, and get a guard of horse, something showy, horse guards or something like that, and call on the old girl.
The old girl?
Well, Lady Richmond. Apologize to her. Ask her to accept the command. Tell her that you made the curate your adjutant or your aide-de-camp or whatever it is the proper thing. By the way, what can you make him?
Well, I might make him my chaplain. I don't see why I shouldn't have a chaplain on my staff. He showed a very proper spirit in punching that young cub's head. Yeah, I should have done the same myself.
Then I've your promise to take command if Lady Richmond consents.
On the condition that I have a free hand. No nonsense about public opinion or democracy.
As far as possible, I think I may say yes.
That won't do for me. That won't do for me. Don't be weak-kneed, Balsquith. You know perfectly well that the real government of this country is and always must be the government of the masses by the classes. You know that democracy is damned nonsense and that no class stands less of it than the working class. You know that we are already discussing the steps that will have to be taken if the country should ever be face to face with the possibility of a Labour majority in Parliament. You know that in that case we should disenfranchise the mob, and if they made a fuss, shoot them down. You know that if we need public opinion to support us, we can get any quantity of it manufactured in our papers by poor devils of journalists who will sell their souls for 5 shillings. You know.
Stop, I say. I don't know. That is the difference between your job and mine, Michener. After 20 years in the army, a man thinks he knows everything. After 20 months in the cabinet, he knows nothing.
We learn from history.
We learn from history that men never learn anything from history. That's not my own. It's Hegel.
Who's Hegel?
Dead, German philosopher. Oh, confound it. That reminds me. The Germans have laid down 4 more dreadnoughts.
Well, then you must lay down 12.
Oh, yes, it's easy for you to say that. But think of what they'll cost.
Think of what it would cost to be invaded by Germany and forced to pay an indemnity of 500 millions.
But you said that if you got compulsory military service, there would be an end of the danger of invasion.
On the contrary, my dear fellow, it increases the danger tenfold because it increases German jealousy of our military supremacy.
After all, why should the Germans invade us?
Why shouldn't they? What else is their army to do? What else are they building a navy for?
Well, we never think of invading Germany.
Yes, we do. I have thought of nothing else for the last 10 years. Say what you will, Balsquith. The Germans have never recognized, and until they get a stern lesson, never will recognize the plain fact that the interests of the British Empire are paramount, and that the command of the sea belongs by nature to England.
But if they won't recognize us, what can we do?
Shoot them down.
You can't shoot them down.
Yes, you can. You don't realize it, but if you fire a rifle into a German, he drops just as surely as a rabbit does.
Dash it all, man. A rabbit hasn't got a rifle, and a German has. Suppose he shoots you down.
Excuse me, Balsquith, but that consideration is what we call cowardice in the army. A soldier always assumes that he is going to shoot, not to be shot.
Oh, come. I like to hear your military people talking of cowardice. Why, you spend your lives in an ecstasy of terror of imaginary invasions. I don't believe you even go to bed without looking under it for a burglar.
Very sensible precaution, Balsquith. I always take it, and in consequence, I've never been burgled.
Neither have I. Anyhow, don't you taunt me with cowardice. I never look under my bed for a burglar. I'm not always looking under the nation's bed for an invader. And if it comes to fighting, I'm quite willing to fight without being 3-1.
Those are the romantic ravings of a jingo civilian, Balsquith. At least you'll not deny that the absolute command of the sea is essential to our security?
Absolute command of the sea is essential to the security of the Principality of Monaco, but Monaco isn't going to get it.
And consequently, Monaco enjoys no security. What a frightful thing! How do the inhabitants sleep with the possibility of invasion, of bombardment, continually present in their minds? Would you have our English slumbers broken in the same way? Are we also to live without security?
Yes. There's such thing as security in the world, and there never can be as long as men are mortal. England will be secure when England is dead, just as the streets of London will be safe when there's no longer a man in her streets to be run over or a vehicle to run over him. When you military chaps ask for security, you are crying for the moon.
Let me tell you, Balsquith, that in these days of aeroplanes and Zeppelin airships, the question of the moon is becoming one of the greatest importance. It will be reached at no very distant date. Can you, as an Englishman, tamely contemplate the possibility of having to live under a German moon? The British flag must be planted there at all hazards.
My dear Michener, the moon is outside practical politics. I'd swap it for a coaling station tomorrow with Germany or any other power sufficiently military in its way of thinking to attach any importance to it.
You are the friend of every country but your own.
Say nobody's enemy but my own. It sounds nicer. You really needn't be so horribly afraid of other countries. They're all in the same fix as we are. I'm much more interested in the death rate in Lambeth than in the German fleet.
You daren't say that in Lambeth.
I'll say it the day after you publish your scheme for invading Germany and repealing all the reform acts.
What do you want?
I don't want anything, Governor. Thank you. The secretary and president of the Anti-Suffragist League said they had an appointment with the Prime Minister and they've been sent on from Downing Street.
Quite right. I forgot them. Would you mind my seeing them here? I feel extremely grateful to these women for standing by us and facing the suffragettes, especially as they are naturally the gentler and timider sort of women. Anything? Did you catch your names?
Yes, sir. The president is Lady Corinthia Fanshawe and the secretary is Mrs. Banger.
Mrs. what?
Mrs. Banger.
Curious that quiet people always seem to have violent names.
Not much quiet about her, sir.
Attention! Speak when you're spoken to and hold your tongue when you're not. Right about face, march! That's the way to keep these chaps up to the mark. Back again! What do you mean by this mutiny?
What am I to say to the ladies, sir?
You don't mind my seeing them somewhere, do you?
Not at all. Bring them in and see me when you've done with them. I understand that Lady Corinthia is a very fascinating woman. Who is she, by the way?
Daughter of Lord Broadstairs, the automatic turbine man. Gave $250,000 to the party funds. She's musical and romantic and all that. Don't hunt, hates politics, stops in town all the year round. One never sees her except at the opera and at musical at homes and so forth.
What a life. Still, if she wants to see me, I don't mind. But where are the ladies?
In number 17, sir.
Well, show Mr. Balsquith there and send Mrs. Farrell here.
Mrs. Farrell! This way, sir.
Mrs. Farrell, I have a very important visit to pay. I shall want my full dress uniform and all my medals and orders and my presentation sword. There was a time when the British Army contained men capable of discharging those duties for their commanding officers. Those days are over. The compulsorily enlisted soldier runs to a woman for everything. I am therefore reluctantly obliged to trouble you.
Your medals and orders and the crooked sword with the ivory handle and your full dress uniform is in the waxworks in the Chamber of Military Glory over in that place they used to call the banqueting hall. I told you you'd be sorry for sending them away, and you told me to mind me on business. You're wiser now.
I am. I had not at that time discovered that you were the only person in the whole military establishment of this capital who could be trusted to remember where anything was, or to understand and order and obey it.
It's no good flattering me. I'm too old.
Not at all, Mrs. Farrell. And how is your daughter?
Which daughter?
The one who's made such a gratifying success in the music halls.
Oh, there are no music halls nowadays. They're variety theatres. She got an offer of marriage from a young duke.
Is it possible? And what did you do?
I told his mother on him.
Oh, what did she say?
Oh, she was pleased as punch. Thank heaven, she says, he's got somebody that'll be able to keep him when the super tax is put up to 20 shillings in the pound.
But your daughter herself, what did she say?
I accepted him, of course. What else would a young fool like her do? He introduced her to the poet laureate, thinking she'd inspire him.
Did she?
Faith, I don't know. All I know is she walked up to him as bold as brass and said, "Write me a sketch, dearie." After all the trouble I took with that child's manners, she's no more notion how to behave herself than a pig. You'll have to wear General Sandstone's uniform. It's the only one in the place because he won't lend it to the shows.
Well, Sandstone's clothes won't fit me.
Well, then you'll have to fit them. Why shouldn't they fit you as well as they fitted General Blake at the Mansion House?
They didn't fit him. He looked a frightful guy.
Well, you must do the best you can with them. You can't exhibit your clothes and wear them too.
And the public thinks the lot of a commanding officer is a happy one. If only they could see the seamy side of it.
If they could only see the seamy side of General Sandstone's uniform, where his flask rubs against the buckle of his braces, they'd tell him he ought to get a new one, let alone the way he swears at me.
When a man has risked his life on 8 battlefields, Mrs. Farrell, he has given sufficient proof of his self-control to be excused a little strong language.
Would you put up with bad language from me because I've risked my life 8 times in childbed?
My dear Mrs. Farrell, you surely would not compare the risk of that harmless domestic kind to the fearful risks of the battlefield?
Oh, I wouldn't compare risks run to bear living people into the world to risks run to blow them out of it. A mother's risk is a duty. A soldier's nothing but a devilment.
Let me tell you, Mrs. Farrell, that if the men did not fight, the women would have to fight themselves. We spare you that at all events.
You can't help yourselves. If 3/4 of you was killed, we could replace you with the help of the other quarter. If 3/4 of us was killed, how many people would there be in England in another generation? If it wasn't for that, the man had put the fighting on us just as they put all the other drudgery. What would you do if we was all killed? Would you go to bed and have twins?
Really, Mrs. Farrell, you must discuss these questions with a medical man. You make me blush positively.
Yeah, good job too. If I could have made Farrell blush, I wouldn't have had to risk my life too often. You and your risks and your bravery and your self-control indeed. Why don't you control yourself, I says to Farrell. It's again my religion, he says.
Mrs. Farrell, you're a woman of a very powerful mind. I am not qualified to argue these delicate matters with you. I ask you to spare me and to be good enough to take these clothes to Mr. Balsquith when the ladies leave.
Lady Corinthia Fanshawe and Mrs. Banger wish to see you, sir. Mr. Balsquith told me to tell you.
Oh, they've come about the vote. I don't know whether it's them that want it or them that doesn't want it. Anyhow, they're all alike when they get into a state about it.
Is Mr. Balsquith not with them?
No, sir. Couldn't stand Mrs. Banger, I expect. Fair caution she is. So I couldn't help laughing when I saw him up it.
How dare you indulge in this unseemly mirth in the presence of your commanding officer? Have you no sense of a soldier's duty?
I'm afraid I shan't ever get the hang of it, sir.
Yeah.
You see, my father was a tidy little barber, has a tidy little barber's business down off Shoreditch, and I was brought up to be chatty and easy-like with everybody. I'll tell you, when I drew the number in conscription, it gave me old mother the needle, it gave me the ump. I should take it very kind, sir, if you'd let me off the drill or let me shave you instead. You'd appreciate my qualities then, you would indeed, sir. I shan't ever do myself justice at soldiering, sir. Can't bring myself to think of it as a proper work for a man with an active mind, as you might say. Half of it's only housemaiden, and the other half is dress up and make believe.
Stuff, sir. It's the easiest life in the world. Once you learn your drill, all you have to do is hold your tongue and obey your orders.
What I do assure you, sir, half the time they're the wrong orders. I get into trouble when I obey them. The sergeant's orders is all right, but the officers, they don't know what they're talking about. The horses know better sometimes. "Fours," says Lieutenant Trevor at the gate of Buckingham Palace only this morning when he was on duty for a state visit to the Coal Trust. Yeah, I was the 4th man, like in the first file, and when I started, the horse held back. And the sergeant was on me straight. "Threes, you bolly fool," he whispers. And he was on me again about it when we came back and called me a fathead, he did. What am I to do, I says. The lieutenant's orders was 4s, I says. I'll show you who's lieutenant here, he says. In the future, you attend my orders and not his, he says. What does he know about it? You didn't give me any orders, I says. Well, couldn't you see yourself there wasn't room for 4s, he says. Why can't you think? Well, General Mitchener tells me I'm not to think, but to obey orders, I says. Is Mitchener your sergeant, or am I, he says, in his bullying way. You are, I says. Well, he says, you've got to do what your sergeant tells you. That's discipline, he says. Yeah, what am I to do for the general, I says? You ought to let him talk, he says. That's what he's for.
It is impossible for the human mind to conceive anything more dreadful than this. You are a disgrace to the service.
Well, the service is a disgrace to me. When my mother's people pass me in the street with this uniform on, I hardly know which way to look. There never was a soldier in my family before.
There never was anything else in mine, sir.
My mother's second cousin was one of the Parkinses of Stepney. And what do you know of the feelings of a respectable family in the middle station of life? Oh, I can't bear to be looked down on as a common soldier. Why can't my father be let by my discharge? You've done away with the soldier's right to have his discharge bought for him by his relations. The country didn't know you were going to do that, or it never would have stood it. As an Englishman, is an Englishman to be made a mockery like this?
Silence. Silence. Attention. Right about face. March!
Then I should have lived to be spoke to in this way as the lowest of the low. Me, that's shaved a City of London alderman with me own hand.
Poltroon! Crybaby! Well, better disgrace yourself here than disgrace your entire country on the field of battle.
Oh, who's going to disgrace his country on the field of battle? Well, it's not fighting I object to. It's soldiering. Show me a German and I'll have a go at him as fast as you or any man. But to have me time wasted like this and be stuck in a sentry box at the corner of a street for an ornament to be stared at, and to be told out right about face march if I speak as one man to another. That ain't pluck, that ain't fighting, that ain't patriotism. It's been made a bloomin' sheep of.
A sheep has many valuable military qualities. Emulate them. Don't disparage them.
What's the good of talking to you? If I wasn't a poor soldier, I could punch your head for 40 shillings for a month. But because you're my commanding officer, you're to deprive me of the right to a magistrate and make me a compliment of giving me 2 years hard instead of shooting me. Oh, why can't you take your chances, same as any other civilian does?
I search the pages of history in vain for a parallel to such a speech made by a private to a general. But for the coherence of your remarks, I should conclude that you were drunk. As it is, you must be mad. You shall be placed under restraint at once. Call the guard.
Call your grandmother. If you take one man off those doors, the place will be full of suffragettes before you can wink.
Well, then arrest yourself and off with you to the guard room.
What am I to arrest myself for?
That's nothing to you. You have your orders. Obey them. Do you hear? Right about face. March!
How would you feel yourself if you was told right about face march as if you was a doormat?
I should feel as if my country had spoken through the voice of my officer. I should feel proud and honored to be able to serve my country by obeying its commands. No thought of self, no vulgar preoccupation with my own petty vanity could touch my mind at such a moment. To me, my officer would not be a mere man. He would be, for the moment, whatever his personal frailties, the incarnation of our national destiny.
What I'm saying to you is the voice of old England, a jolly sight more than all this rot you get out of books. I'd rather be spoke to by a sergeant than by you. He tells me to go to hell when I challenges him to argue it out like a man. It ain't polite, but it's English. What you say ain't anything at all. You don't act on it yourself. You don't believe in it. You punch my head if I tried it on you, and serve me right. Well, and look here, here's another point for you to argue.
No!
Is it?
No!
Pray, how much longer is the Anti-Suffragette League to be kept waiting?
I'm extremely sorry. You really do not know what I have to put up with. This imbecile, incompetent, unsoldierly disgrace to the uniform he should never have been allowed to put on ought to have shown you in 15 minutes ago.
All I said was that the two...
And not another word. Attention! Right about face. March! Get out of the room this instant, you fool, or I'll kick you out.
Oh, I don't mind that, sir. It's human. It's English. Why couldn't you have said it before?
Take no notice, I beg. These scenes are of daily occurrence now that we have compulsory servants under the command of the halfpenny papers. Pray sit down.
Thank you. Let me introduce
And
myself.
now, ladies, to what am I indebted?
Let me introduce us. I am Rosa Carmina Banger, Mrs. Banger, organizing secretary of the Anti-Suffragette League. This is Lady Corinthia Fanshawe, the president of the league, known in musical circles, I myself am not musical, as the Richmond Park Nightingale, a soprano. I am myself said to be almost a baritone, but I do not profess to understand these distinctions.
Most happy, I'm sure.
We have come to tell you plainly that the anti-suffragettes are going to fight.
Oh, pray, leave that to the men, Mrs. Banger.
We can no longer trust the men.
They have shown neither the strength, the courage, nor the determination which are needed to combat women like the suffragettes.
Nature is too strong for the combatants.
Physical struggles between persons of opposite sexes is unseemly,
Demoralizing.
insincere.
They are merely embraces in disguise.
No such suspicion can attach to combats in which the antagonists are of the same sex.
The anti-suffragettes have resolved to take the field.
They will enforce the order General Sandstone for the removal of all women from the 2-mile radius. That is, all women except themselves.
I am sorry to have to inform you, madam, that the government has given up that project and that General Sandstone has resigned in consequence.
That does not concern us in the least. We approve of the project and will see that it is carried out. We have spent a good deal of money arming ourselves, and we are not going to have that money thrown away through the pusillanimity of a cabinet of males.
Arming yourselves. But, my dear ladies, under the latest proclamation, women are strictly forbidden to carry chains, padlocks, tracts on the franchise, or weapons of any description.
You little know your countrywomen, General Mitchener.
Madam, it is my duty to take possession of that weapon in accordance with the proclamation. Now be good enough to put it down.
Is it your duty to take possession of this weapon also?
That, madam, is not a weapon, it's a curiosity. If you would be kind enough to place it in some museum instead of pointing it at my head, I should be obliged to you.
This pistol, sir, was carried at Waterloo by my grandmother.
I presume you mean your grandfather.
You presume unwarrantably.
Mrs. Banger's grandmother commanded a canteen at that celebrated battle.
Who my grandfather was is a point that has never been quite clearly settled. I put my trust not in my ancestors, but in my good sword, which is at my lodgings.
Your sword?
The sword with which I slew 5 Egyptians with my own hand at Kassassin, where I served as a trooper.
Lord bless me, but was your sex never discovered?
It was never even suspected. I had a comrade, a gentleman ranker, whom they called Fanny. They never called me Fanny.
The suffragettes have turned the whole woman movement onto the wrong track. They ask for a vote.
What use is a vote? Men have the vote.
And men are slaves.
What women need is the right to military service. Give me a well-mounted regiment of women with sabers, opposed to a regiment of men with votes. We shall see which will go down before the other. No, we have had enough of these gentle, pretty creatures who merely talk and cross-examine our ministers in police courts and go to prison like sheep and suffer and sacrifice themselves. This question must be solved by blood and iron, as was well said by Bismarck, who I have reason to believe was a woman in disguise.
Bismarck a woman?
All the really strong men in history have been disguised women.
My dear lady.
How can you tell? You never knew that the hero of the Charge of Cassassin was a woman. Yet she was. It was I, Rosa Carmina Banker. Would Napoleon have been so brutal to women, think you, had he been a man?
Oh, come, really. Surely female rulers have often shown all the feminine weaknesses. Queen Elizabeth, for instance, her vanity, her levity.
No one who has studied the history of Queen Elizabeth can doubt for a moment that she was a disguised man.
Isn't she splendid?
This very afternoon, I shall cast off this hampering skirt forever, mount my charger, and with my good saber, lead the anti-suffragettes to victory.
I can't allow anything of the sort, madam. I shall stand no such ridiculous nonsense. I'm perfectly determined to put my foot down.
Don't be hysterical, General.
Hysterical?
Do you think we are to be stopped by these childish exhibitions of temper? They're useless. Your tears and entreaties, a man's last resort, will avail you just as little. I sweep them away, just as I sweep your plans of campaign made in Germany.
How dare you repeat that infamous slander? If this is the alternative to votes for women, I shall advocate giving every woman in the country 6 votes. Remove that woman! See that she leaves the building at once.
Would you have the feeling art to step out, madam?
You are a soldier. Obey your orders. Put me out. If I got such an order, I should not hesitate.
Would you mind lending me an hand, Governor?
I shall be obliged to shoot you if you stir, General.
When you are ordered to put a person out, you should do it like this. I shall now wait on General Sandstone. If he shows any sign of weakness, he shall share that poor wretch's fate.
Isn't she magnificent?
Thank heaven she's gone. And now, my dear lady, is it necessary to keep that loaded pistol to my nose all through our conversation?
It's not loaded. It's heavy enough, goodness knows, without putting bullets in it.
Then I am master of the situation. This is loaded.
But since we are not really going to shoot one another, what difference can it possibly make?
True. Quite true. I recognize that the practical good sense that has prevented you from falling into the snares of the suffragettes.
The suffragettes, General, are the dupes of dowdies. A really attractive and clever woman.
Yourself, for instance.
Another step and you are a dead man.
My dear lady.
I am not your dear lady. You are not the first man who has concluded that because I am devoted to music and can reach F flat with the greatest facility, Patty never got above E flat. I am marked out as the prey of every libertine. You think I am like the thousands of weak women whom you have ruined?
I solemnly protest.
Oh, I know what you officers are. To you, a woman's honor is nothing, and the idle pleasure of the moment is everything.
This is perfectly ridiculous. I've never ruined anyone in my life.
Never. Are you in earnest?
Certainly I'm in earnest. Most indignantly in earnest.
Then you have no temperament. You're not an artist. You've no soul for music.
I have subscribed to the regimental band all my life. I bought 2 salusophones for it out of my own pocket. And when I sang Tosti's Goodbye Forever at Knightsbridge in 1880, the whole regiment wept. You are too young to remember that.
Your advances are useless.
Confound it, madam! Can you not receive an innocent compliment without suspecting me of dishonorable intentions?
Love, real love, makes all intentions honorable, but you could never understand that.
I will not submit to the vulgar penny novelette notion that an officer is less honorable than a civilian in his relations with women. While I live, I'll raise my voice.
Tush!
What do you mean by tush?
You can't raise your voice above its natural compass. What sort of a voice have you?
A tenor? What sort had you?
Had. I have it still. I tell you, I am the highest living soprano. What was your highest note, pray?
B flat, once in 1879. I was drunk at the time.
Though you may not believe me, I find you are more interesting when you talk about music than when you are endeavoring to betray a woman who has trusted you by remaining alone with you in your apartment.
These repeated insults to a man of blameless life are as disgraceful to you as they are undeserved by me, Lady Corinthia. Such suspicions invite the conduct that they impute. Now, you need not be alarmed. I'm only going to leave the room.
Fish.
Fish? That's worse than tush. Why fish?
This fish. Cold-blooded fish.
Well, dash it all, madam, do you want me to make advances to you?
I have not the slightest intention of yielding to them, but to make them would be a tribute to romance. What is life without romance?
I tell you...
Stop. No nearer. No vulgar sensuousness. If you must adore, adore at a distance.
This is worse than Mrs. Banger. I shall ask that estimable woman come back.
Poor Mrs. Banger. Do not for a moment suppose, General Mitchener, that Mrs. Banger represents my views on the suffrage question. Mrs. Banger is a man in petticoats. I am every inch a woman, but I find it convenient to work with her.
Do you find the combination comfortable?
I do not wear combinations, General. They are unwomanly.
I shall go mad. I never for a moment dreamt of alluding to anything of the sort.
There is no need to blush and become self-conscious at the mention of underclothing. You're extremely vulgar, General.
Lady Corinthia, you have my pistol. Would you do me the goodness to blow my brains out? I should prefer it to any further effort to follow the gyrations of the weathercock you no doubt call your mind. And if not, refuse, then I warn you that you'll not get another word out of me, not if we sit here until doomsday.
I don't want you to talk. I want you to listen. You do not yet understand my views on the question of the suffrage. I must preface my remarks by reminding you that the suffragette movement is essentially a dowdy movement. Suffragettes are not all dowdies, but they are mainly supported by dowdies. Now, I am not a dowdy. Oh, no compliments.
I did not utter a sound.
It is easy to read your thoughts. I am one of those women who are accustomed to rule the world through men. Man is ruled by beauty, by charm. The men who are not have no influence. The Salic law, which forbade woman to occupy a throne, is founded on the fact that when a woman is on the throne, the country is ruled by men and therefore ruled badly. Whereas, when a man is on the throne, the country is ruled by women and therefore ruled well. The suffragettes would degrade women from being rulers to being voters, mere politicians, the drudges of the caucus and the polling booth. We should lose our influence completely under such a state of affairs. The New Zealand women have the vote. What is the result? No poet ever makes a New Zealand woman his heroine. One might as well be romantic about New Zealand mutton. Look at the suffragettes themselves. The only ones who are popular are the pretty ones, who flirt with mobs as ordinary women flirt with officers.
Then I understand you to hold that the country should be governed by the women after all.
Not by all the women, by certain women. And also by one woman, by the women who have charm, who have artistic talent, who wield a legitimate, a refining influence over the men.
In short, madam, you think that if you give the vote to the man, you give the power to the women who can get around the man.
It is not a very delicate way of putting it, but I suppose that is how you would express what I mean.
Perhaps you've never had any experience of garrison life. If you had, you'd have noticed that the sort of woman who is clever at getting around men is sometimes rather a bad lot.
What do you mean by a bad lot?
I mean a woman who would play the very devil if the other women didn't keep her in pretty strict order. Now, I don't approve of democracy because it is rot, and I'm against giving the vote to women because I'm not accustomed to it, and therefore I'm able to see it with an unprejudiced eye. What infernal nonsense it is. But I tell you plainly, Lady Corinthia, that there is one game that I dislike more than either democracy or votes for women, and that is the game of Antony and Cleopatra. If I must be ruled by women, let me have decent women and not, well, the other sort.
You have a coarse mind, General Mitchener.
So is Mrs. Banger. And by George, I prefer Mrs. Banger to you.
You prefer Mrs. Banger to me?
I do. You said yourself she was splendid.
You are no true man. You are one of those unsexed creatures who have no joy in life, no sense of beauty, no high notes.
No doubt I am, madam. As a matter of fact, I am not clever at discussing public questions because, as an English gentleman, I was not brought up to use my brains. But occasionally, after a number of remarks, which are perhaps sometimes idiotic, I get certain convictions. And thanks to you, I have now got a conviction that this woman question is not a question of lovely and accomplished females, but of dowdies. The average Englishwoman is a dowdy and never has half a chance of becoming anything else. She hasn't any charm. She has no high notes except when she's giving her husband a piece of her mind or calling down the street for one of the children.
How disgusting.
Well, somebody must do the dowdy work. If we had to choose between pitching all the dowdies into the Thames and pitching all the lovelies and accomplished women, the lovely ones would have to go.
And if you had to do without Wagner's music, or do without your breakfast, you would do without Wagner. Hey, does that make eggs and bacon more precious than music? Or the butcher and baker better than the poet and philosopher? The scullery may be more necessary to our bare existence than the cathedral. Even humbler apartments might make the same claim, but which is the more essential to the higher life?
Your arguments are so devilishly ingenious that I feel convinced you got them out of some confounded book. Mine, such as they are my own. I imagine it's something like this. There is an old saying that if you take care of the pence, the pounds will take care of themselves. Well, perhaps if we take care of the dowdies, and the butchers and the bakers, the beauties and the bigwigs will take care of themselves. Anyhow, I don't want to have things arranged for me by Wagner. I'm not Wagner. How does he know where the shoe pinches me? How does he know where the shoe pinches your washerwoman? You and your high F in alt. How are you to know when you haven't made her comfortable unless she has a vote? Do you want her to come in and break your windows?
Am I to understand that General Mitchener is a Democrat and a suffragette?
Yes, you have converted me, you and Mrs. Banger.
Farewell, creature. Mr. Bosquith, I am going to wait on General Sandstone. He at least is an officer and a gentleman.
The game is up.
What do you mean?
The strain was too much for the cabinet. The old liberal and unionist free traders declare that if they are defeated on their resolution to invite tenders from the private contractors carrying on the army and the navy, they will go solid for votes for women as the only means of restoring the liberties of the country which we have destroyed by compulsory military service.
Infernal impudence.
The Labour Party is taking the same line. They say that men got the Factory Acts by hiding behind the women's petticoats, that they will get votes for the army in the same way.
Bosquith, we must not yield to clamour. I have just told this lady that at last I am convinced
That the suffragettes must be supported.
No. That the anti-suffragists must be put down at all hazards.
Same thing.
No. For you now tell me that the Labour Party demands votes for women. Now see, that makes it impossible to give them because it would be yielding to clamour. The one condition on which we can consent to grant anything in this country is that nobody shall presume to want it.
Mitchener, it's no use. You can't have the conveniences of democracy without its occasional inconveniences.
What are its conveniences, I should like to know?
Well, when you tell people that they are the real rulers and they can do what they like, 9 times out of 10 they say, all right, tell us what to do. But it happens sometimes that they get an idea of their own, and then of course you're landed.
Shoot them down.
No, I'm not going to shoot them down. It's no use telling me that. I'm going to do it. After all, I'm going to do it. After all, I don't suppose votes for women will make much difference. It hasn't in the other countries in which it's been tried.
I never suppose it would make much difference. What I can't stand is giving into that Pankhurst lot. Hang it all, Balsquith, it seems that only yesterday, when we put them in good quad for a month, I said at the time that it ought to have been 10 years. Now, if my advice had been taken, this wouldn't have happened. It's a consolation to me that events are proving how thoroughly right I was.
Look here, sir. Mrs. Banger locked the door of General Sandstone's room on the inside, and she's sitting on his head until he signs a proclamation for women to serve in the army.
Well, put your shoulder to the door and burst it open.
It's only in storybooks that doors bursts open as easily as that. Besides, I'm only too thankful to have a locked door between me and Mrs. P, and so should all the rest of us.
Cowards! Balsquith, to the rescue!
This is the business of the Sergeant-at-Arms rather than the leader of the house. There's no use in my tackling Mrs. Banger. She'd only sit on my head, too.
You take my tip, Mr. Balsquith. Give the women the vote, and give the army civil rights, and have done with it.
Balsquith, prepare to hear the worst.
Sandstone is no more.
On the contrary, he's particularly lively. He has shot Mrs. Banger by a proposal of marriage, in which he appears to be perfectly in earnest. He says he has met his ideal at last, a really soldierly woman. She will sit on his head for the rest of his life, and the British Army is now, to all intents and purposes, commanded by Mrs. Banger. When I remonstrated with Sandstone, he shouted, "Right about face march at me," in a most offensive tone. And if she hadn't been a woman, I should have punched her in the head. I precious nearly punched Sandstones. The horrors of martial law administered by Mrs. Banger are too terrible to be. I demand civil rights for the army.
What-o, General? What-o?
Hold your tongue. Mrs. Farrell? Civil rights don't mean the right to be uncivil. Almost a pun.
What's the matter now?
I have private business with Mrs. Farrell. Outside, you infernal blackguard.
Well, I didn't ask to be...
Oh! Excuse the abruptness of this communication, Mrs. Farrell, but I know only one woman in the country whose practical ability and force of character can maintain her husband in competition with the husband of Mrs. Banger. I have the honor to propose for your hand.
Do you mean you want to marry me?
I do.
Oh, no, thank you. I'd have to work for you just the same, only I shouldn't get any wages for it.
That will be remedied when women get the vote. I've had to promise that.
Mrs. Farrell, you have been charwoman here now ever since I took up my duties. Have you really never, in your most romantic moments, cast a favorable eye on my person?
I've been too busy casting an unfavorable eye on your clothes and on the litter you make with your papers.
Am I to understand that you refuse me?
Well, just wait a bit. Ah, 3307 Elephant.
I trust you're not ringing for the police, Mrs. Farrell. I assure you, I'm perfectly sane.
Is that you, Eliza? Not out of bed yet. Well, go and pull her by the heels. The lazy streel. Tell her mother wants to speak to her on very particularly about General Mitchener. And don't you be afeard. I know you're sane enough when you're not talking about the Germans. Is that you, Eliza? Do you remember me giving you a clout on the side of the head for telling me that if I only knew how to play me cards, I could marry any general on the staff instead of disgracing you by being a charwoman? Well, I can have General Mitchener without playing any cards at all. What do you think I ought to say? Well, I'm no chicken myself. How old are you?
52.
He says he's 52. She says you're down in Who's Who is 61.
Damn who's who.
Anyhow, I wouldn't let that stand in the way. If I really what? I can't hear you. I can't really. If I really what? Who drove him? I've never said a word to. Love him. Ara, don't be a fool, child. She wants to know, do I really love you? It's likely indeed I'd frighten the man off with any such nonsense at my age. But, well, that's just what I was thinking.
May I ask what you were thinking, Mrs. Farrell? The suspense is awful.
I was thinking that perhaps the Duchess might like her daughter-in-law's mother to be a general's lady better than to be a charwoman. Oh, wait till you're worried yourself, me fine lady. You'll find out that every woman is a charwoman from the day she's married. So then you think I might take him? Clang, you young scald. If I had you here, I'd teach you manners. Now that's enough now. Back to bed with you. And be thankful I'm not there to put my slipper across you. Oh, the impudence. Ah, bless you, my children. May you be happy, she says. Give dear old Mitch me love, she says.
Lady Corinthia Fanshawe to speak to you, sir.
General Mitchener, your designs on Mrs. Banger are defeated. She is engaged to General Sandstone. Do you still prefer her to me?
Oh, he's out to the hunt. He's engaged to me.
And extremely proud of it, Lady Corinthia.
She suits you exactly. Mr. Balsquith, you at least are not a Philistine.
No, Lady Corinthia, but I am a confirmed bachelor. I don't want a wife, but I want a Nigeria.
Oh, more shame for you.
Silence, woman. The position and functions of a wife may suit your gross nature, and Nigeria is exactly what I desire to be. Can you play accompaniments?
Melodies only, I regret to say, with one finger. But my brother, who is a very obliging fellow, and not unlike me personally, is acquainted with 3 chords with which he manages to accompany most of the comic songs of the day.
I do not sing comic songs. Neither will you when I am your Egeria. Come, I give a musical at home this afternoon. I will allow you to sit at my feet.
That is my ideal romantic happiness. It commits me exactly as far as I desire to venture. Thank you.
What price me, General? Won't you celebrate your engagement by doing something for me? Mayn't I be promoted to sergeant?
You are too utterly incompetent to discharge the duties of a sergeant. You're only fit to be a lieutenant. I shall recommend you for a commission.
Hooray! Oh, the Parkinsons of Stepney will be proud to have me calling them now. Oh, I'll go and tell the sergeant what I think of him. Hooray!
Well, you might have the manners to shut the door after you.
Poor wretch, the day after civil rights are conceded to the army, he and Chubbs Jenkinson will be found incapable of maintaining discipline. They will be sacked and replaced by really capable men. Mrs. Farrell, as we are engaged and I'm anxious to do the correct thing in every way, I'm quite willing to kiss you if you wish it.
You'd only feel like a fool, and so would I.
You really are the most sensible woman. I've made an extremely wise choice.
You may kiss my hand, if you wish.
I think we had better not commit ourselves too far. Let us change the subject, which threatens to become embarrassing. The moral of the occasion for you, Mitchener, appears to be that you've got to give up treating soldiers as if they were schoolboys.
The moral for you, Balsquith, is that you've got to give up treating women as if they were angels.
It's a mercy you found one another out at last. Oh, that's enough now.
And curtain. Oh, what a fun play. I'm so sorry, guys, that I didn't check to see that there were some, fortunately not very many discrepancies in the script. I've been pressed by a whole lot of things lately.
Out of makeup and costume.
I know, I love the mustache.
All right, let's take a little break before we do the last one. Say, let's recommence at, 3:25.
Oh, who changed my name for me? And thank you.
It was probably Paul. He changed mine too.
Oh, Paul, I bet you're a great daddy. How are the kinder, by the way?
Oh, they're doing well.
And why do you know that word?
Right. Yeah, well, now I'll rename you back to King Magnus.
Oh,
To be king, from general to king.
I'll take
Although
care.
there was a general who wanted to be king, but
Well, as long as everybody
Different
understands, I'm always of extremely high rank.
By the way,
Oh,
guys,
thank you.
let's just stick to the original scene as I planned it, because obviously we don't all have the same.
What are you muttering?
I said, let's just stick to the scene from Applecart as I originally specified it, and not the expansion that I talked about, because we don't have it, so don't all have it. So.
By the way,
It starts when he announces my entrance as the ambassador.
it was lovely working with y'all again.
Yes, you too, Jane. I hope we can
Thank
do
you.
it again.
Yes.
Bye, Jane.
Yeah.
It's
And
lovely
Paul-
to see you.
I know we keep saying we got to get together. This time we have to.
Yes,
There's no
we do.
pandemic. There's no pandemic anymore. We
Yay.
can do it. Yay. Well, there is. There is, but he says as he coughs. Yes. Yeah. But give John my love. I'm gonna listen to the other one, of course, but I'm gonna be off of it. So
Okay.
but yeah, I don't know what your schedule is. Mine is a little crazy. I'm going away for Thanksgiving and then I'll be back, and then I have a lot of singing gigs going on. So
Where are you singing and what are you singing?
it's actually, I do ringer work with the Oratorio Society of Queens.
What?
And
Uh-huh.
so we have concerts, and then we have a Christmas concert at Our Lady's Queen of Martyrs, which is nice.
Are these
They were-
paid? Are these paid singing gigs?
Yes, absolutely.
I just finally, somebody recommended me. I got into doing some of that.
Oh, it's
a
fantastic.
little, it's great. It looks like great fun, except the one that I did was in Newark at this gigantic basilica. It was like being in a French cathedral, and there was very little preparation, and I was like sight reading and stumbling around. It was chaos.
Well, they rehearsed for 3 months.
Mhm.
And then we come in for 3 rehearsals,
Oh,
including
that's
the-
nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I've been doing ringer stuff too. It's like the best.
It
Yeah.
really is. It's
It's a
so
good gig.
handy. Yeah, it's a good gig. The money is fine. The time is not ridiculous. And for the most part, the songs are ones I know. Now, last year we did a based on Argentinian folk music. It was called Misa Criolla by a guy named Rodriguez or Ramirez. And the thing was all Argentinian folk rhythms and instruments. It was fascinating, but it was harder than hell to learn.
Wow.
But
It's nice though if you can do it at your pace and not have to go through 3 months of weekly rehearsals.
exactly, we have the music, so we get to we'll learn it on our own, and then we get in there and
Yeah, I
love-
like that
love it.
because I can
I
sight
love
read
it.
pretty well, so I like that. Listen, if anybody needs a baritone locally, please remember.
Okay, definitely. I will.
I'll send you an email.
Okay, do. Do. Okay. Take care, guys. I'm going to listen, but I don't know if we're having a final goodbye. But thank you, Paul, for letting me feel not as ridiculous as I felt by not knowing anything about a computer.
You did great. You did great.
And
Come back
Ruth-
for more. Don't do
Can't
two
beat me
things.
on that one, Jane.
Huh?
I said you can't beat me on that one. Sorry to say.
Anyway, I will let you guys have your moment of break, and I will just go into. Do I do anything different if I just want to listen, or just take off everything?
Just
Yeah.
turn off your camera and your mic.
Hang out. Just turn off your.
Okay. Did any
Video and-
my non-picture showed up during the whole thing? Did it show up for you guys, or was that
No.
just? Oh, goody. Okay. Only thing I worried about. Anyway, happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Happy turkey.
Yes. Yes.
Still here at the end. We sometimes just chat for a while. So
Oh, well, that's okay. I'm going to be here. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
And have a great time in California. Are you moving? Do you live there now?
talking about Drew.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is my home.
Drew's
Yeah.
been out there
Oh, it is.
quite a while.
Since
Uh,
COVID.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
I lived in Santa Barbara for a year and a half.
Oh, wonderful.
Farther south, but you guys
Yeah.
are more normal up there. Anyway, take care. Bye. Talk to you later.
Oh, you remember Melinda Thompson?
Yes.
Yeah. She,
Melinda or Melissa?
you got me confused. I'm not sure. Anyway, she's coming back to the States finally. And it's gonna live in California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she
Why
might
are you-
participate in some readings.
Oh, cool.
Like
Well,
that.
you now have, by the way, I'm sorry, to David, you have my home number, but my cell number gets to me a lot faster because I
Oh.
look at it.
Well, send it to me.
I will send it to you.
in an
Okay.
email, please. Yeah.
Bye-bye again.
I may
Thanks.
have it, but I'm not sure. So
Okay, because I don't pay attention to my other one unless I'm here. All right, bye.
okay.
Mm.
Oh,
Oh,
So, Paul, where are the Kinder?
Well, I mean,
One of them on the West
one's-
Coast.
Yeah, yeah. Kate is still living in Long Beach, and she just recently got a new dog as well. So she's trying to get that and her cat to coexist. And the dog really wants to be friends, and the cat will not have anything to do with it. That's
Big dog?
No, a very small dog actually. She got a big dog, a sort of a pit bull adoption, but then unfortunately it didn't. It had some cancer that came back, and so now she got a different dog, a younger, little one, but
Did you ever meet my Great Dane?
I think so.
See
Yeah,
pictures of him?
One time.
Her?
long time
still
ago.
take
Yeah.
care of that ever?
She was
Well,
so
that's
gentle
nice.
with kittens. She lived in a house before me with a cat and several cats, including kittens. And I'd see her. She was so sweet. She was gentle with everyone. It's the little dogs that are aggressive. And I took Athena. I took the dog up to stay with friends in Massachusetts who had a cat. Cat first jumped on the mantle to get away from this big dog, and then very quickly came down because Athena was the best. I still miss her. 3 years after she died, I still miss her every day.
Yeah. Just love that picture of me shaking her paw.
Yes, of course. I sent you that, right? I sent you that, right?
3 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow, I feel like you just had her and she was
Yeah.
jumping all over the place.
Does time feel weird to you because of COVID then?
yes.
I think time might just feel weird to me.
Oh.
Yeah. Well,
I've been
also
trying
as you
to
get older, it
decipher
just
whether-
seems to go a lot quicker.
Yeah.
I've been trying to decipher whether that's changed for me because of my age, which happens when you get older, or whether COVID, because people talk sometimes that COVID make everything feel time's rushing by or something.
So the older you get, the faster it goes.
Yeah, see, that's why I think mine just might be, I'm 62, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was Kitty Carlisle said, I think when she was 93, she said, every 10 minutes it's breakfast.
There was a guy in this Pirates production I just did. He was in the chorus. He was one of the pirates and one of the policemen. He never missed an entrance. He never missed a line. He never fussed. He never got flustered. 93. And his voice rang. And it wasn't trained. He's not a singer. He's just lucky. It didn't have any of that thickening that voices have sometimes when people get older. 93. Amazing.
Wow.
He won the genetic lottery.
Yeah.
I guess. Had really big ears. That's the only thing that really looked 93 about him.
That's where the resonance is.
He's a little
Hey, my
dry.
voice teacher never talked about that in the 10 years I studied with him. Nothing about ear resonance.
Get your ears. Get your ears.
Oh, by the way, Drew, I got to tell you, I was driving in today, and I don't know why, but I was thinking of the Shakespeare sketch. And I must have told you, but in case I didn't.
Editor?
What?
The editor sketch?
Yeah, the one we did.
Yeah.
The way you said that line, you can't say that's gibberish. It's just so brilliant. I could write a paper on why it's so brilliant.
Oh,
Love the way you nailed that one.
awesome.
You remember that line?
Thanks. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
When we
I
whittle
remember
it
that
down
whole- I
to
don't know
to
if I
be
could
or
do
not
that
to
whole-
be.
Yeah.
When we whittle the line down to be or not to be, and you went, you can't say that's gibberish.
Oh, yeah. Do you rewatching the online one, or are you watching the old?
I didn't watch it. I just thought of it
You just thought of it.
because I
Oh,
think
wow.
you did it. You did it every time we did it. You did it the same way, and
Yeah, probably.
just love it.
Works.
Good lecture on why, but it's brilliant. Oh yes, Dave.
Should we go?
We should, we're past our little start time, so let's
Okay.
get on with it. All right. This is Shaw's late play, The Apple Cart, in which King Magnus has been having great difficulties with his cabinet. And it is now the third act, act two, actually, act two of the piece. There's an interlude in between. The King Magnus, and his queen, Jemima, are having a little afternoon relaxation period on the terrace of the palace. And the queen is knitting and the king is reading the paper when in comes an officer of the court and announces the American ambassador.
His Excellency, the American Ambassador, Mr. Van Hatten.
Well, what on earth's the matter, Mr. Vanneton? You are shaking His Majesty's rings off.
Her Majesty will excuse me when she learns the nature of my errand here. This, King Magnus, is a great historic scene, one of the greatest perhaps that history has ever recorded or will ever again record.
Have you had tea?
Tea. Who can think of tea at such a moment as this?
It is hard for us to share your enthusiasm in complete ignorance of its cause.
That is true, ma'am. I am just behaving like a crazy man, but you shall hear. You shall judge, and then you shall say whether I exaggerate the importance, the immensity of an occasion that cannot be exaggerated.
Well, goodness gracious, won't you sit down?
I thank your Majesty.
You have some exciting news for us, apparently. Is it private or official?
Oh, official, sir. No mistake about it. What I am going to tell you is authentic from the United States of America to the British Empire.
Perhaps I'd better go.
No, ma'am, you shall not go. Whatever may be the limits of your privileges as the consort of your sovereign, it is your right as an Englishwoman to learn what I have come here to communicate.
My dear Vanneton, what is devil is the matter?
The King Magnus, between your country and mine, there is a debt.
Well, does that matter now that our capitalists have invested so heavily in American concerns? After paying yourselves the interest on debt, you have to send us $2,000 million a year to balance the accounts.
King Magnus, for the moment, forget the figures. Between your country and mine, there is not only a debt, but a frontier. The frontier that has on it not a single gun nor a single soldier, and across which the American citizen every day shakes the hand of the Canadian subject of your throne.
There is also the frontier of the ocean, which is somewhat more expensively defended at our joint expense by the League of Nations.
Sir, the debt is canceled. The frontier no longer exists.
How can that be?
Am I to understand, Mr. Vanneton, that by some convulsion of nature, the continent of North America has been submerged into the Atlantic?
Something even more wonderful than that has happened. Only one may say that the Atlantic Ocean has been submerged to the British Empire.
I think you'd better tell us as succinctly as possible what has happened. Pray, sit down.
You are aware, sir, that the United States of America at one time formed a part of your empire.
There is a tradition to that effect, yes?
No mere tradition, sir, an undoubted historical fact. In the 18th century,
That is a long time ago.
centuries count for but little in the lifetimes of great nations, sir. Let me recall the parable of the prodigal son.
Oh, really, Mr. Vanneton, that was a very, very long time ago. I take it that something important has happened since yesterday.
It has indeed, King Magnus.
Well, then what is it? I have not the time to attend to the 18th century and the prodigal son at this moment.
The king has a cabinet meeting in 10 minutes, Mr. Vanneton.
I should like to see the faces of your cabinet ministers, King Magnus, when they hear what I have to tell you.
So should I. But I am not in a position to tell it to them because I don't know what it is.
The prodigal, sir, has returned to his father's house. Not poor, not hungry, not ragged as of old. Oh, no. This time he returns bringing with him the riches of the earth to the ancestral home.
You don't mean to say...
I do, sir. The Declaration of Independence is canceled. The treaties which endorsed it are torn up. We have decided to rejoin the British Empire. We shall, of course, enjoy Dominion home rule under the presidency of Mr. Bossfield. I shall revisit you here shortly, not as the ambassador of a foreign power, but as High Commissioner for the greatest of your dominions and your very loyal and devoted subject, sir.
The devil he will.
What a splendid thing, Mr. Vanneton.
I thought your majesty would say so. The most splendid thing that has ever happened.
Don't you think so, Magnus?
May I ask, Mr. Vanneton, with whom did this masterstroke of American policy originate? Frankly, I've been accustomed to regard your president as a statesman whose mouth was the most efficient part of his head. He cannot have thought of this himself. Who suggested it to him?
I must accept your criticism, Mr. Bossfield, with all due reserve, but I may mention that we Americans will probably connect the good news with the recent visit to our shores of the president of the Irish Free State. Yeah, I cannot pronounce his name in its official Gaelic form, and there is only one typist in our bureau who can spell it, but he is known to his friends as Mick O'Rafferty.
Rascal. Jemima, we shall have to live in Dublin. This is the end of England.
In one sense, that may be so, but England will not perish. She will merge, sir, into a bigger and brighter concern. Perhaps I should have mentioned that one of our conditions will be that you shall be emperor. King may be good enough for this little island, but if we come in, we shall require something grander.
This little island? This little gem set in a silver sea. Has it occurred to you, Mr. Vanneton, that rather than be reduced to a mere appendage of a big American concern, we might raise the old war cry of Sinn Fein and fight for our independence to the last drop of our blood?
I should be right sorry to contemplate such a reversion to a barbarous past. Fortunately, it's impossible. Impossible. The old war cry would not appeal to the cosmopolitan crews of the fleet of the League of Nations in the Atlantic. That fleet would blockade you, sir, and I fear we should be obliged to boycott you. The $2,000 million a year would stop.
But the continental powers, do you suppose that they would consent for a moment to such a change in the balance of power?
Why not? The change would only be nominal.
Nominal. You call an amalgamation of the British Commonwealth with the United States a nominal change? What will France and Germany call it?
France and Germany. These queer old geographical expressions which you use here from old family habit do not trouble us. I suppose you mean Germany, that the chain of more or less Soviet republics between the Ural Mountains and the North Sea. Well, the clever people in Moscow and Berlin and Geneva are trying to federate them. And it is fully understood between us that if we don't object to their move, they will not object to ours. France, by which I take it you mean the government of the new Timgad, is too busy in Africa to fuss about what is happening at the ends of your little channel tube. So long as Paris is full of Americans and Americans are full of money, all's well in the West from the French point of view. One of the great attractions of Paris for Americans is the excursion to Old England. The French want us to feel at home here, so we do. Why shouldn't we? After all, we are at home here.
In what sense, may I ask?
Well, we find here everything we are accustomed to. Our industrial products, our books, our plays, our sports, our Christian Science churches, our osteopaths, our movies and talkies. Put it in a small parcel and say our goods and our ideas. A political union with us will be just the official recognition of an already accomplished fact. A union of hearts, as you might say.
You forget, Mr. Vanneton, we have a great national tradition.
The United States, ma'am, have absorbed all the great national traditions and blended them with their own glorious tradition of freedom into something that is unique and universal.
Oh, we have a civilized culture which is peculiar to ourselves. It may not be better than yours, but it is different.
Well, is it? We found that culture enshrined in British material works of art, in the stately country homes of your nobility, in the cathedrals our common forefathers built as the country houses of God. What did you do with them? You sold them to us. I was brought up in the shade of Ely Cathedral, the removal of which from the county of Cambridge to New Jersey was my dear old father's first big professional job. The building which stands on its former site is a very fine one. In my opinion, the best example of reinforced concrete of its period. But it was designed by an American architect and built by the Synthetic Building Materials Trust, an international affair. Believe me, the English people, the real English people who take things as they come instead of reading books about them, will be more at home with us than they are with the old English notions of which our tourists try to keep alive. When you find some country gentleman keeping up the old English customs at Christmas and so forth, who is he? An American who has bought the place. Your people get up the show for him because he pays for it, not because it is natural to them.
Our own best families go so much to Ireland these days. People should not be allowed to go from England to Ireland. They never come back.
Well, can you blame them, men? Look at the climate.
No, it is not the climate. It is the horse show.
I must think this over. I've known for years past that it was in the cards. And when I was young and under the influence of our family's tradition, which of course never recognized the rebellion of the American colonies as valid, I actually dreamt of a reunited English-speaking empire at the head of civilization.
Aye, great. And now come true.
Not yet. Now that I'm older and wiser, I find the reality less attractive than the dream.
And is that all I'm to report to the president, sir? He will be disappointed. I'm a little taken aback myself.
Now, for the present, that is all. This may be a great idea, but
Surely.
it may also be a trap in which England will perish.
Oh, I shouldn't look at it in that way. Besides, nothing, not even dear old England, can last forever. Progress, you know, sir. Progress.
Yeah, just so. We may survive only as another star on your flag. Still, we cling to the little scrap of individuality you have left us. If we must merge, or as you call it, did you say submerge? Some of us will swim to the last. My dear,
I'll strike the gong.
you shall hear from me after the cabinet meets. Not tonight. You must not sit up waiting for a message. Early tomorrow, I hope. Thank you for bringing me the news before the papers got it. That seldom happens now. Pamphilus, you will reconduct His Excellency. Good evening.
I thank your majesty. Good evening, ma'am. I look forward to presenting myself in court dress soon.
You will look very nice in it, Mr. Vannerton. Good evening.
And end of scene. One wonders, doesn't one?
But it ends just as you're sort of getting interested in now, where's this going to go?
Yeah.
I didn't
I
get what
wish
you
you'd
said. Ben.
written a full piece on just that.
Yeah, I said you end the scene, or we ended just when you're wondering, when you get interested in wondering where's this going to go.
Yeah. Well,
It's very
what
good
happens is-
American accent you did there, David.
Oh, thank-
Yeah.
Well,
It's
anyway,
so bizarre to hear that from you.
I know.
but no, what happens is his cabinet comes in and he confronts them. He manages to subdue his obstreperous cabinet as a result of it. His cabinet is being totally disrespectful and uncooperative, and
Oh, how unusual.
yeah. And so he just he realizes that this is the way he can manage them.
This is available in Gutenberg or whatever, the full play.
Yes, it
sorry.
is. Gutenberg has it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gutenberg, Australia.
Yeah.
Drew, is that your backyard?
Yeah.
Normally they wouldn't because
Nice life.
they
Warmer
were-
out here than it is
I
in
don't
the
know
house.
quite for sure how this happened, but
Holy Look at Drew's view.
yeah, isn't that
Oh,
amazing?
Well, I'm not coming back to New York.
You can understand why he doesn't want to come back.
Oh, really? If you've never seen Co-op City at sunlight,
Well, moon over
Well, very, very good job, everyone, for all of these. This was really great. Anybody got any final words before I end the live stream? Or it's really interesting seeing these perspectives on things from like the first two plays over like 100 years ago, which still seem very relevant, and this one, which is a little bit more of a sort of a fantasy, like that the King of England. I know that there is a King of England again. I mean,
yes.
This one was written in 1930, or at least first produced in 1930, the apple cart. So it's a little less than 100 years.
yeah.
And he said it.
Yeah.
What his idea of setting it in the future was to put it in the 1980s.
Well,
Right.
given recent events here, it's something worth considering.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
I really like
Well,
think
I don't think Britain would want us with a.
I
was
don't
gonna
either.
say, they
No matter how
wouldn't,
much money
they
we
wouldn't
give.
have us. They wouldn't have us back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't blame
Well
them.
done, well done, guys.
I'm quite sure they would. They got enough problems.
Oh,
Where's Angus? Why don't we ask him if he'll take us?
Maybe there. I guess he
Angus,
lives.
will you have us?
Maybe he got
Yeah. Well.
Are
Anyways,
we done with the live stream?
coupled into whatever.
yeah. Let me just. I'm sorry.